right. These people are getting a live stream. I don't know if I didn't announce it. I forgot to announce it, so I don't know if anybody's going to listen, but who knows? We'll see. People are getting notifications on their phones about it, so you never know.
Mm-hmm. How's your Facebook following, Dylan? You got that SEO? You got that EDA?
Do I have my search engine optimization? Which is what SEO stands for? Sure.
Yeah.
Here, let's talk about the podcast. All right, let me start recording on GarageBand and we'll start talking. All right. I'll just sync it up with you, Tyler. 1.
Do you need to sync it up if I'm not recording?
Yeah, I still have my file separately from your guys' file.
Got it.
1.
2.
Okay. All right. So I'll go first, and then Derek, and then Tyler, you'll be third. That'll be the typical order for this episode.
Okay. Sounds
good. Welcome to the Watch and Talk. I'm Dylan Shuck.
I am Derek Miranda.
And I'm Tyler Marchant from the Cynical Cartoons podcast.
In this podcast, we're reviewing Dunkirk, as well as our definitive ranking of all Christopher Nolan films. And you can hear all of our previous reviews on thewatchandtalk.com. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a supporter of the show, you can go to patreon.com/thewatchandtalk. Big shout out to our premium supporters, Shakita, June, Endless Mike, and Kaka. We got 2 new supporters within the last week or two. I meant to give them a shout out last week, and I don't know if I did or not. Rather than go back and listening, I'll just give them shout outs again. But big shout out to Gail and David. Thank you guys for hopping on board, and it's really appreciated. Derek.
Forever immortalized on the Dunkirk episode of the podcast.
Absolutely. One of the bigger episodes of the year, I'm sure. I don't know if it's going to be the more downloaded ones. I think the Star Wars gets that one each year no matter what. But Derek, I have a question. Have you ever struggled with a social media presence, Derek?
I don't know. I guess I haven't really thought about it.
What about you, Tyler? Have you ever struggled with social media presence?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I have a solution for you, and it's coin crack. I don't think Derek knew that's what I was doing right there at all. Did you, Derek?
No, I had no idea.
You were like, what the hell is he
see, I've been dunked on before in this situation. I knew exactly what the deal was, Dylan.
Anyway, boost your social media presence. You can go to thewatchandtalk.com/coincrack. And big shout out to Ninth Link. Ninth Link designers are ready to listen to your business needs and create websites, applications, and email campaigns. Check them out at thewatchandtalk.com/9thlink. That's 9th, the number spelled out. All right, we're late. This is a late Watch and Talk episode. This is out on Monday. We got delayed because Derek and I, among many other people, went to Comic-Con this weekend. So we had quite a hectic weekend, did we not, Derek?
Yes, it was an intense handful of days.
Now, for those of people like me that don't want to wait in lines for things, there's not a ton to do at Comic-Con.
Yeah, why did you go to Comic-Con if you don't like waiting in lines? And
other than people watching, where you just get a seat, just such a concentrated group of people. Oh, there's babes, okay. But I don't mean that I'm walking around creeping on girls. Even though I mean,
no, he totally was. He totally was. He's like, dude, look at that one. Oh, dude, no, it wasn't.
Look at that
getting
one.
Called out.
But no, just looking at all the costumes and the people and being like, why are you the person that you are? It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. So at one point, Derek and I, while walking the floor, I had business cards for the Watch and Talk. Just started slipping them into people's bags. Just slipping them right in. So people get home and they're like, oh, this podcast card. Let's see what this podcast is and look it up. So the reason I'm saying this is to one, let's talk about guerrilla marketing just in general. But no, I'm just joking. I'm curious if anybody is actually listening to this because of that. So if you are, that's how the card happened, is I slipped it into your bag. And tweet us at The Watch and Talk or email us, thewatchandtalk@gmail.com, and let me know that you're listening to this because of that. I'm just curious if it worked because I spent an inordinate amount of time doing that at Comic-Con. But it was a lot of fun. I think when I told Derek that's what I had done the day before, I don't think it sounded like a fun thing. And before I knew it, Derek was grabbing them and joining the fun. Were you not?
No, totally. Because you were like, oh, you're going to do this with me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not going to happen. And we start walking, and I'm watching him try to put them in. And half these cards are just missing the bag and falling on the floor. So I'm over here like, I could do way better than this. So that's what got me to start doing it.
And is it
is just watching him fail.
Is it easy as it looks?
No, it's not. It actually is. Like I missed a few. I lost him to the floor. It was I was like, I can't make fun of you anymore. It's harder than it looks.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
I feel like you're just gonna get a lot of complaints on Twitter, Dylan. I feel like maybe not as many listeners as you will get, just people complaining or picking up the card saying, "What the fuck is this?" and then ripping it up to shreds and throwing it away.
I'll say this one thing. It's nerve-wracking, and it never stops being nerve-wracking. But
I'm sure
we get a ton of laughs out of it regardless, because
right.
we're not doing anything necessarily wrong, but we're acting like we are. Like, we're doing it super shady. We're trying not to be seen by people, and just dropping a present which is the present, the gift that keeps on giving, which is the Watch and Talk podcast that you can check out at thewatchandtalk.com. But yeah, anyway, so that was that. We actually I didn't do a lot of the attractions, but we did actually surprisingly get to go to an awesome panel. Right.
What was that?
Yes.
So it was it was Saturday end of day, and we were walking up because I had gone the day before and I'd walked so much I just wanted to sit down. So I was like, I'm going to whatever panel's open, and we went to like this literally a DC Comics panel for this like series of comics, and I don't read comics really ever, except for The Walking Dead is the only, I think, series I've ever read. And I just wanted to go there and sat down. And we sat down and watched it, and we're like, all right, this is kind of interesting, whatever, let's leave. The next day we were walking, and Derek was separated from me. I hadn't seen him yet on Saturday. And I said, hey, we're going to this panel, and we saw this a new Hulu show with Seth Rogen's producing. And we're like, all right, we'll check this out. And they're like, it's open. You guys can come in. And we're like, the fact that we're able to get into this makes us feel like this isn't that cool. But whatever.
Yeah.
We went in, and they came. It's called Future Man, and they came out, and Seth Rogen's there. Josh Hutcherson from The Hunger Games is the main character of the show, and a couple other people, and Paul Scheer, who's from The League, and he also does the How Did This Get Made podcast.
Yeah,
that's right. Paul Scheer moderated the panel.
Right, he was the moderator, and they showed a trailer. They talked about it for like 5 minutes, and then they opened it up to questions. And the way that they're a bunch of funny people, and they pretty much roasted every single person to ask a question. Like, they found a way to roast them completely. Seeing Seth Rogen's reactions to kids knowing who he is was really funny. He was like, "You should not know who I am. You should not know."
Right.
Like, they're like, she's like, "I've seen your movies." He goes, "Exactly my point. You, where are your parents? Like, I need to have a talking to them afterward." But the coolest thing that happened is somebody came up and was asking a question, and he had a Little Mermaid shirt on, and Seth Rogen was like, "Wait, by the way, man, I really like that shirt. Like, where'd you get that shirt?" And I don't remember what the guy says or whatever. And he says, I'd like to buy that shirt. Would you be willing to sell that shirt right now? And the guy's like, well, how much are you willing to buy it for? And he goes, I'll give you $100 right now. And the guy goes, okay. And then Seth Rogen comes down off the stage, and the whole room is just roaring at this point, like cheering, like especially because once he reached for his wallet to get out $100, and then Seth Rogen took his shirt off, handed it to the guy, so he gave him back his shirt, took the guy's shirt and gave him $100, and then went back up on the stage. Also, the shirt was too small, so he was showing like bare midriff from it. The shirt was way too
I was
small.
about to say Comic-Con seems like the perfect place for Seth Rogen to do this because, a bunch of big guys there, but it seems like it didn't quite work out.
Nope, yeah, the shirt was too small for him, but it was just so hilarious. And the thing is that I was thinking about it afterward. I was like, the fact is that him doing that cost him $100, but every person in that room told at least one person that story. Probably
I told multiple people.
Yeah,
I told
probably
at least
multiple.
5 probably already.
And you probably told them all that the panel was for a show called Future Man. That $100 got him talk about guerrilla marketing. Got him an insane amount of press for that show. We were saying afterward, because we were left that panel, because it was just a ton of funny things happening. There ended up being a porn star that asking Seth Rogen how she can transfer from the adult industry into the actual
film industry. I forgot about that. And he was like, they were like, oh, well, like Sasha Grey.
Yeah, there was just because he was just dumbfounded on how to answer the question, especially if she outed herself as an adult actress. And then this is a Comic-Con, so obviously she got surrounded by people asking her questions after she left after she was done with the panel. But it just in general, we walked out and we were like, man, if we never would have been able to get to that if anybody had half the idea how cool that was going to be.
Right.
So yeah.
That was one probably one of my highlights of Comic-Con. But then
I have just got to say, I mean, Future Man does not. I mean, just the name of it just sounds like a movie from Idiocracy. Like, I don't know is it based on something that's like an established name, or did they actually just think like, oh, that's a great name for this new project?
It's a time travel half-hour comedy. With it's gonna be hard to describe without it sounding lame. But the trailer was actually pretty fun, even though the trailer I think gave us like the first 5 episodes in clips, basically. But he plays a video game and he beats it. And he's the first person in the world to beat it. And it turns out the people from the future sent the video game back in time as a training piece to find like the John Connor of their time to save the time. And basically what happens is the guy who works for this company that's trying to cure herpes. And the cure for herpes ends up wiping out humanity. So they need to go back in time and stop. They want to go back in time and kill the guy who invented it. And he's like, no, he's like a good guy. He's like, we don't want to kill him. All we have to do is stop him from meeting the girl that gives him herpes that makes him want to cure herpes. So
like he had to go back in time to cock block this dude.
Exactly.
Like
that's what they said. They're like, no, we're not going to kill him. We're going to cock block him. And so that's just the idea. And then they do that. And then it turns out he ends up getting AIDS. So then they're like, wait, now we just made things worse. And then they keep changing things. And it's a half-hour comedy that looks like it's not. I'm not sitting here being like, wow, I can't wait to see this. But it sounds funny enough. And there were some funny things in the sizzle reel they showed us. So
it looks funny, and it's funny how like they'll like, oh, they made this video game, and they come back and he's like, this is the last Starfighter. Like, you just this is the premise of a movie that's already out.
There's really funny Back to the Future references in it too.
Yeah,
it seems like it might be an interesting thing to be talking about. Maybe that's in Hulu. That's coming out in, I think, October, November. So yeah. Anyway, then I guess I'll quick tell the final story from that evening. We went to go meet a friend at a hotel who was drinking at the hotel bar, and she had been like trying to find celebrities and stuff like that, fangirling, whatever. And we were at the hotel bar, and she tried to go to an upper level. And they said you can't go up there. This is for a private party. And she's like, okay. And then later, to use the bathroom, the line for the bathroom downstairs was insane. So she took the elevator up and got off on a floor, and they're not guarding the elevator. And then she went to use the bathroom, but then she saw like Jeff Goldblum and the cast from Stranger Things. So she was like, I want to go back up there and try to sneak into their party. And at first I was like, nah, I don't really want to do this. Like, I don't really want to go and try to sneak into a party these people don't want, there's a reason we're restricted. Like, I don't want to be an unwanted random person going to this area. But that's before I had a couple drinks in me. And after I had a couple drinks in me, I need to use the bathroom, first of all. And I was like, you know what? Let's go do this. Let's go check this out, see what the situation is. So we go upstairs, and there's no celebrities or any celebrity parties, but there's like this weird little auction room. And she's like, do you want to go in? And I'm like, let's go. So I stroll in, act like we know what we're doing. And we go in, and it's just this crazy expensive comic artwork auction that's happening. And we get in, and people are spending $300, $400, $500. So then I sit down with Derek and her, and we're all like just kind of bewildered with what we were looking at. We were like, we don't even know what this place is. This is insane. And then a Superman piece came up, like this really cool like sketch of Superman from I guess a famous artist that's really old. And Derek's like, that's going to go for like a couple $1,000s. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. And he's like, because the highest piece we'd seen before that was like $700. So I was like, what do you mean? No way is it going to go for that much. And he's like, I bet it is. And I'm like, all right, I'll bet you the next drink. So I'll bet you the next drink, and we shook on it. That's going to be $700 or less. And the guy's like, all right, we're going to open up the bidding at $600. Do you hear $600, $700, $700, $800, $900, $900, $1,100, $1,200? I'm like, I already lost. I lost within 2 seconds. And there's a little bar in the corner of this auction place. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get up there and go get a drink. And he said he wants a sculpin. So I go there, and I'm waiting in line, and I see the price. And the price is the drinks. It's $12 for a sculpin. And I was drinking cocktails. Cocktails were $14. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to pay $26 for 2 drinks. This is the worst place to be in to make a drink bet with somebody in the world. and it's actually $15 for a martini. So I'm like, I'm going to get a Manhattan on the rocks. And he's making it, and it's with Jim Beam, which is, for those of you guys who don't know, Jim Beam's a very cheap bourbon. It's one of the cheapest bourbons you can get until you get like the homeless people bourbons. Anyway, I'm like, I'm about to pay $15 for a Manhattan that is made with Jim Beam, and then I get up there and I pull out my credit card to pay, and he's like, "Oh no, it's a hosted bar." And I swear, the clouds parted and the sun just shined right in my face. I dunked a $5 tip in the guy's basket and like danced my way back. Anyway, long story short, we stayed in that auction area until it closed.
We were there for a while.
Yeah, we were there until it closed, just watching these crazy auctions with this underground world that we had never been exposed to. And it actually ended up being a really weird and fun time. There's a guy in front of us who paid $3,000 for a piece. He came there just for that. Like, that's what, because I was like,
that's right.
I was like, you weren't bidding on other things. You only bidding on that. Did you come here just for that? He's like, yeah, I came here just for this one. And he said the value of it's $4,000, so he got a $1,000 deal. And I said, are you going to turn around and sell it? He's like, no, I'm going to keep it for my collection. I was like, oh wow, it was just a weird one of a kind experience, but it was hilarious, and I don't know.
I was going to say, like, this is like my 6th Comic-Con, and I've never seen anything like this before. I'm like, dang, like, this is like, also, I'm very drunk during all of this. I had been drinking most of the day because they had like free Johnny Walker the Blade Runner experience. I had free bourbon cocktails at the Kingsman Happy Hour at the Hard Rock. So, like, I had a lot to drink by then. And I'm just, like, there, drunk in this auction room, just, like, amazed. And these were, like, literally just, like, black and white sketches.
Yeah.
Comic book artist sketches. There's a Frank Miller piece. This is the most expensive thing I saw sold.
That one for $17,000.
$17,000 this drawing went for.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there, like, just the three of us, just amazed.
We did not belong there at all.
No, we did not.
That we just snuck into this random floor that had this random auction on. And it was a random series. Anyway, any of the trailers you guys found interesting from Comic-Con? Anything you guys are excited for? I'm excited for Ready Player One.
Yes. Yesterday. So all weekend, like, I was out like late every night. I would get home, I go straight to bed. So I didn't watch any of the trailers until yesterday. After Comic-Con, I went to a party, and then I came home, and before, I sat down and watched Game of Thrones. I'm like, I'm going to watch every Comic-Con trailer that got released.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just booking through them. The Stranger Things 2 trailer was one of the coolest things I saw.
Yeah, that looked really good.
The new Thor trailer was really cool. The Westworld trailer, The Walking Dead had like a 5-minute trailer.
Yeah, but it was awful. It was really bad.
It wasn't great. It was one of the weaker.
Yeah, there was no art to it at all. It was just they took a bunch of scenes and chopped them up and put them in a blender and randomized it with random sounds and music and ambiance. It was such a poorly done trailer. Like, it looked like a fan-made trailer, like legitimately a non-experienced fan-made trailer.
I'll admit the new Justice League trailer has me more intrigued for Justice League.
Yeah, just a little bit. It still doesn't look amazing. I don't know.
The Flash jokes were over the top in that trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like really bummed out about that because I've wanted a Flash movie like my entire life. Like when I was watching Spider-Man and shit when I was a kid, I was just like, that's the movie they need to make, And now it's just like it's looking like a huge bummer. I don't like Ezra Miller, what I've seen of him in the role, and
I like him. It's just
I don't know, man. I do not at all. I just hate so much about him. It would be like almost as bad as if they cast Dane DeHaan in the role, I think.
He's the guy from Valerian, right?
Yeah, that's the guy from Valerian.
And Chronicle.
But yeah. I do want to say that for my Westworld podcast and for my Walking Dead podcast, in the next week or so, we're going to be doing a bonus podcast episode for both those to discuss the trailers. So look out for that. For the Dead Inside show for The Walking Dead and the Westworld Watch for the Westworld one, so we'll talk about that too. And you can see all these if you go to the watchandtalk.com/podcasts to see links to those. Anyway, I Ready Player One is the most exciting, I think. I agree. It's just so weird, right? It's just I've when I'm seeing that trailer, I'm like, I have no idea what to expect with this movie, and it's been.
Have
It
you read-
doesn't
have you
look
read
like
the
a
book?
Spielberg movie, really, which is weird.
What did you say, Tyler?
Have either of you guys read the book?
No.
No, I haven't read the book. I don't know much about the book, and I did watch the trailer, but it doesn't seem very like Spielberg-y to me, which was weird. It just doesn't look like it really has a take. I don't know.
It looks Spielberg-y to me in the
yeah.
Minority Report sense.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, but Minority Report doesn't feel very Spielberg-y to me either. I mean, that was kind of like a one-off sort of thing that he did, 15 years ago almost.
I get that. I will say though, I did read the book, and I just read it in the last 6 months, and I loved it. I started reading again a lot lately, and that's one of my favorite books I've read in the last year. And I'm reading
it's a
this
great
book. I'm reading this book, and I'm like, Spielberg's perfect for this. And then, I'll admit though, the trailer, it doesn't quite feel super Spielberg-y, but
The Iron Giant.
yeah, that was cool. I mean, you get the DeLorean, you get Freddy Krueger. I'm very excited. This is easily my top anticipated movie for 2018. Like, even more so than Han Solo or Avengers. Like, Ready Player One, number one anticipated.
Yeah, I don't know what mine is. I definitely know that my most anticipated movie was this year was obviously Star Wars Episode 8. The Last Jedi. I guess they stopped saying episodes a long time ago. But Dunkirk was my number 2. For the year, so I was excited to see this. Although Blade Runner is quickly shooting up that list of anticipated.
Yeah, Blade Runner is my number 2. I went like Last Jedi, Blade Runner, Dunkirk.
Interesting.
I feel like I'm a little bit pessimistic these days. Like, I'm really worried about like all of the news coming out about Han Solo. Like the first Blade Runner trailer really got me hyped up about it, and I shouldn't have watched the next one because it's starting to look like it's not gonna be so great, and I guess I just need to sort of wait it out and stop watching teasers. That's really what I need to do.
Yeah, you do.
Is
but
just stop watching new things about it.
I watched my first trailer for it today. I was already comfortable in Dunkirk because I went and rewatched Dunkirk today in IMAX, and I was already comfortable in my seat. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna stop trying to avoid this trailer because I did so much work to avoid the Dunkirk trailer that I was like, I'm not ready to do that much work again because Blade Runner is gonna be so heavily advertised before it comes out.
Yeah.
I'm like, this was the most work I've ever done to avoid a trailer that I did with the Dunkirk trailer, and I'll tell you guys how that turned out when we get to it. Anyway, good.
Oh no, I was just about to ask. Have you seen Suicide Squad? Did you watch that one last year?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like that movie is like permanently tainted me on Jared Leto. I didn't used to have much of an impression on him at all. I was like, well, he's fine when he shows up in a movie. I don't like him or dislike him necessarily. And when he showed up in the Blade Runner trailer, I just had like a visceral reaction of like, oh, fuck, this is gonna suck. Like, I don't know why I suddenly feel that way just because of Suicide Squad.
I like Jared Leto's
I hope
Joker.
that he doesn't ruin it for me.
I like
oh
Jared Leto's
no.
Joker.
I gotta go. I gotta go do something else. This is bad.
Derek, didn't we just have this conversation?
I thought he was okay. I
thought it was great that he
definitely
didn't do a Heath Ledger impersonation. He did his own Joker. I thought it was cool. That was not my problem with the movie at all. Was Jared
I
Leto.
think he was one of the better parts of Suicide Squad, to be honest. That movie had a lot of problems, and I wouldn't put Jared Leto in with that. I cannot, although
I know it's an unpopular opinion, though. I know that what I'm saying is an unpopular opinion.
I honestly think that he's the worst part of a terrible movie, but yeah, to each their own.
I can't understand why people hated on Jared Leto. Like, I'm not like, oh, you guys are crazy. Like, I fully get it. But for me, like, it was okay. It was, I mean, it's not like, oh, he was as good as Heath Ledger or Jack Nicholson by any means, but I thought he did okay. That's just me.
I thought he also had an interesting design, too. I thought it was interesting. But anyway. All right, so let's move on to in lieu of our top 5, we are going to do a top 10 instead this week. And I guess we're going to try to not go on for 10 minutes about each single movie when we go about them. I'm sure we'll discuss each kind of movie, but let's try not to go for 4 hours with this. But we're going to rank our Christopher Nolan movies. There's 10 of them. I have seen 9 of them. I have not seen Following, which is his directorial debut. And but Tyler, have you seen all of them?
Yeah, I've seen all of them. I haven't seen Insomnia is the one that I've only seen once, and that was years ago. So that sort of bottoms my list. But all the other ones I've seen several times.
It's on Amazon Prime, so if you're looking to rewatch that, it's on Amazon Prime. I just rewatched The Prestige for the first time since it came out this week, and that's on
Dang.
Netflix. What about you, Derek? You've seen all of them.
I seen them. I own all of them as well. I own his entire filmography.
In the like Criterion editions too, right?
Following. I mean,
Just the
following's his
following,
only
yeah.
Criterion.
I think
but
Insomnia
do
might
have
have one as well, right? Or is that just the original film?
No, that's the original, the Swedish or the Norwegian version
Right.
of Insomnia is on Criterion.
Got it. All right, so yeah, I guess we'll start off. We'll start off in backwards order. I'll start off with my number 10, and I'm only putting this just because I haven't seen it. I'm just gonna say Following is my number 10. I really shouldn't even be saying anything for number 10 though, because I shouldn't be ranking it, but we haven't seen. So this is not to rank it. It's I haven't seen it. So, what's your number 10, Derek?
First of all, before I even start my ranking, I just got to say, Christopher Nolan, it's very hard for me to rank his films. I just kind of, I had a little top 5 ranking, and then I just went through earlier today to kind of fill out the whole list, and he's very hard for me to rank. So
Yeah.
it's like some of these films I'm like, I could maybe swap them out and for. So don't take this as like, this is like my definitive, not budging at all on this. I just want to get that out there. Anyways, and I love all his films. It's not like, oh, this one is terrible and this one's amazing. I love them all. But number 10, I will say, is Following.
Yeah,
I
also have to say that immediately when I start off, I'm putting a movie I really like as number 8. Like, so it's not that doesn't mean like this is one list that it's like all of them are good. So it's gonna be like, why did you have that so low? It's like, man. It's really hard to put things down on lists for this one, to be honest. But yeah.
Exactly.
And it's also super hard to compare a movie with like a $250 million budget to Following, which was made for, presumably less than like $500,000.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a high budget fare at all. The bottom of my list, number 10, is Insomnia. I only watched it once. I was bored out of my mind, but I was 16. So that's the thing. I need to watch it again. I just don't really have any opinion on it at all, which kind of sucks because I like his films a lot.
I have to say, it feels the least Christopher Nolan of any of the Christopher Nolan movies I've ever seen.
Sure, it's his Jackie Brown of, comparison to like Quentin Tarantino or something.
Yeah. So yeah, it just doesn't feel as much like it. It doesn't, and it's not. It's playing with time in a different way. I guess it's because it's dealing with night to day and him not sleeping. And it's dealing with the effects of the insomnia on it, but there's all of his movies play with time to some extent. So it's a different take on time, I guess. So it just doesn't. It's not as overt as a lot of them, anyway. But yeah. So my number 9. It's where the controversy is going to start.
All right, here we go.
Batman
All right,
Begins.
God damn it. Okay. That's fine.
Not the biggest fan of Batman Begins. It's my least favorite of the Batman trilogy. I know that's not a popular opinion, so don't worry, guys. Don't at me. But I also am not a fan of Katie Holmes' portrayal in there. I wish Maggie Gyllenhaal was cast from the beginning.
I don't think either of them are really that great, but it's surprising to me that you would put Batman Begins underneath The Dark Knight Rises. Do you
I like The
Dark Knight Rises,
yeah.
or do you?
I was not disappointed by The Dark Knight Rises, and I didn't even realize, because at that point I was not a part of, film Twitter or the film conversation on the internet, and didn't realize that it wasn't really liked by a lot of people until later. And I was like, what? Really? Nobody likes Dark Knight Rises? All right. So yeah, Batman Begins is my number 9. What about you, Derek?
My number 9 is The Dark Knight Rises. I gotta say,
it's not rising on your rankings, that's for sure.
This honestly, it was hard. It wasn't like, oh, I easily put Batman Begins above Dark Knight Rises. Like it's close for me with these two. It's close, but Dark Knight I think I like Batman Begins a little bit more. It's funny, there's like parts of the different movie films I like better or worse, but it just, I had to pick something, and I put Dark Knight Rises as number 9.
I do have to say, my 3 through 7 is completely interchangeable. It's really a 4-way tie for third, with third, fourth, fifth, and third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So I'm sorry, 3 through 6 are all pretty much tied as far as that goes, and it's like. I'm not comfortable with where they are, but I just have to go with it.
I kind of agree with you on that. Mine's kind of the same.
Yeah. What is your number 9, Tyler?
My number 9 was Following. You know, it's a good first film. It's not obviously his best, and I enjoy it more than a lot of the films that I put higher up on the list. But it's not as well made as those movies, so I just had to sort of, take it that way, I guess.
My number 8 is Insomnia. Which I love Insomnia. I think it's a really good movie. It just doesn't, like I said earlier, it doesn't feel as much like Nolan as a lot of other movies. And you got to start somewhere on this list. So Insomnia is number 8. And it's not to knock it. Again, it's a fantastic film. I recommend anybody rewatch it that hasn't seen it in a long time. Robin Williams, such a good performance in that movie. Yeah, that's my number 8.
Yeah, I've heard that he's really good in it, and in hindsight, that might add another layer to it. Going back and trying to find, a good Robin Williams performance out of, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of stuff that he's done that I super loved outside of his comedy stuff. So it might be worth revisiting.
Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. I mean, he has done drama, but not a whole lot of it. And some of his comedy, I know. I don't want to shit talk Robin Williams. Whatever. Let's move on to Derek's next thing.
Good call.
All right. Is it number 8? Batman Begins.
All right.
What's your number 8, Tyler Merchant?
My number 8 might be a controversial opinion. Interstellar. I did not love that movie or even enjoy it at all. It was a bummer for me.
I think that is kind of the conversation around people have Interstellar lower than I do. I love Interstellar.
Sure.
My
first experience seeing it was in a theater where the sound was crackly and the picture was slightly out of focus the entire time. And in that experience, you're without the visual masterpiece of all of this, the movie doesn't stand up without that. There's a lot of action movies that probably could hold their own even if the film was slightly out of focus and you could kind of enjoy it, but this one was not one of those movies at all.
I disagree. I think the concepts are the concepts that it introduces and the ideas of gravity affecting time and then going on that planet, and also the cowardness of Matt Damon's character and how that transpires, and all these other situations are such think pieces that it just drives my mind insane. So that's the kind of movie I like to see. It's another reason I like Prometheus so much. It made me think so much.
I just think that it broke the illusion for me. Before seeing Interstellar, Christopher Nolan was probably my favorite director, and I watched it and I was like, wow, that was a piece of shit movie. And then I came back again and I watched it the next week and it was, perfect picture and sound. And I was like, I still don't enjoy this. And I almost left in the middle of it. And then I tried to watch it on Blu-ray and be like, maybe I'll enjoy it now. And I've never once enjoyed Interstellar in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. I mean, there's an alternate universe where I did just see it in IMAX the first time and I loved it. And, I'm a different man in that universe.
Got it.
Interesting.
What's yours? No, it's mine. I'm next.
Yeah, you're number 7.
Dark Knight Rises. Wasn't disappointed by it, but I just have to rank the other movies above it. So Dark Knight Rises is my. I also think that Tom Hardy's Bane was an awesome character. I loved him for that. So
he was great. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Derek. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is Interstellar. It's funny, Tyler, I definitely understand what you're saying. When I went, it's funny, when we went, we drove up to Irvine so we could see it on, 70 millimeter IMAX. And yeah, opening night show. And it started off, it wasn't just that there was problems with the sound, it was crackly, but the sound was actually off. It wasn't in sync with the video. And I remember we're all in the theater, we're 2 minutes in, we're like, turn it off.
Yeah.
And the guy comes out and he's like, hey guys, sorry, we're used to, we get a film, we get something on an actual film projector, and of course this happens. He's like, we could either play it through like this, or we can we have to feed it all the way through and start over. And we're all like, how long will that take? He's like, 15, 20 minutes. And we're like, yeah, do that. We're not gonna watch this whole 3-hour Nolan epic when it's not in sync. That's gonna drive us crazy.
Right.
So we go and we sit there, and I'm texting my friend oh my god, I've been waiting so long for this movie. I can't believe this is happening. But they go through when we started, and it worked fine. The rest. But I'll admit it still was kind of hard to hear the sound. I this happened across the country, I heard. And also, it's another film that is divisive. I mean, we get out of there was a large group of us that went out there. We get out, and half of us loved it, and half of us hated it. I was in the camp that really did enjoy it. I do understand the complaints. I was slightly let down because of how such high expectations I had. There were some issues I had,
right?
Especially with time travel. It kind of bugs me in time travel movies where, like it was you that sent the message to yourself and kind of thing. It's just kind of like, I know.
Yeah, if that's the movie, that should be the premise of the movie. That shouldn't be like the twist at the end that totally blindsides everybody, because it's not going to. It's going to be like, well, obviously that was what was going on.
Exactly. And it just kind of, I feel like most time travel movies just kind of do that, and it's just kind of, I don't know, kind of lazy. It's like, well, it's kind of, I know time travel is impossible, but this is also even kind of impossible within your little time travel possible universe. So that I had some complaints, but I did really enjoy Interstellar. I will say I still enjoyed it. It's
the performances in the movie are really great. Especially the girl playing the 10-year-old version or whatever of his daughter is just like really fantastic. Jessica Chastain's great, and Anne Hathaway, who I usually don't like, is fantastic. So it's not a terrible movie at all.
Also, the moment when they get back, when you feel the danger of time slipping very quickly when they're on that water planet where time moves so quickly, and he gets back to the ship and it's been 23 years when it's only been an hour or so for them. The way that you feel that is a one of a kind experience in the movie, where you get back and one of the guys has been there for 23 years and he's considered killing himself because he's just been just so miserable by himself, and had gone a little crazy, and it changed him as a character. And then to have to listen to his the messages and see all these messages that happened for 23 years, and how his daughter is now older than him. Nothing could beat anything than that moment for that movie for me. That was incredibly powerful.
Well, and that's also why, I mean, the marketing in that movie really was fantastic. Like, you didn't know anything about that. You didn't know anything about the whole Matt Damon thing. You didn't really know exactly what the movie was about until you saw it in theaters. And so that's, marketing done right, but it also sort of has the effect of you not knowing exactly what movie you're going to see, and then people can be kind of let down by that. Like Tomorrowland totally seemed like something totally different than what it was in the end.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
Number 8 or 7 for you, Derek.
No, I just said my sit.
Okay.
It's Tyler's turn.
My number 7 also may be a little bit of a controversial opinion. My number 7 is Dunkirk. For reasons that I'll get to in a bit. Okay. I don't want to talk about it right now.
Yep. Number 6 for me. Again, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all tied. So this is basically tied for third. For me is Memento.
Okay.
Go ahead, Derek.
My number 6. Once again, I'm gonna kind of agree with you. My 3 through 6 are really, even my 2 through 6. Honestly, it's really close. It's really hard, but my number 6 is The Prestige.
While we've been talking, The Prestige has gone from its position.
I feel like we're all shifting our lists around a little bit. I definitely moved mine.
It's gone from 6 to 3 back to 4. It's just been jumping all over the place. This has been so jumbled. I don't even know where I stand on it really at the end.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard with Nolan. For some reason, all my other favorite directors, I have a much easier time ranking. And it's not it's because these are great and these suck. It's just somehow easier for me to rank. But Nolan, it's really hard.
Right.
And your number 6, Tyler, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is The Dark Knight Rises. We've already really talked about our opinions on that movie.
Got it. Number 5 for me is The Prestige. It's not number 5. It's tied for 3. What's your number 5, Derek?
My number 5 is Insomnia. I really, really enjoy Insomnia. I remember, I saw it when it first came out, and then I didn't see it for years, and I rediscovered it, probably 4 or 5 years ago. It was on, I was out buying movies. I collect Blu-rays, and the Insomnia Blu-ray was on sale, and I bought it, got home, popped it in, and I was like, man, I forgot how much I really like this film. And I've watched it multiple times since then, and it still holds up. I love it. Robin Williams was great. Al Pacino in a Nolan movie is awesome. And
this is a pretty killer performance too.
Yeah, it was great. I really love it's a good film.
It's interesting how many people that Christopher Nolan has had in multiple films. A lot of people he's had in multiple films. Cillian Murphy, obviously, Anne Hathaway,
Right.
Tom
Michael
Hardy,
Caine,
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. Yeah,
And then it's also interesting when you get these people that are only in one, like Jessica Chastain, like Hugh Jackman, like Matthew McConaughey, Guy Pearce. Right? It's just interesting that which ones like he just puts in all of them, and it's interesting this is one standalone ones. And Robin Williams, Al Pacino is a perfect example of that too. Even though Christopher Nolan wasn't Christopher Nolan when Insomnia came out.
I mean, Jessica Chastain may also return at some point.
Sure.
Like the only film that he's done since Inception or since Interstellar was a movie with no female characters in it. So maybe she'll be back. Who knows?
I mean, there was nurses, so there's females in it, but they weren't fleshed out really or anything. Not that,
Was there?
Yeah, there were female nurses
for like a second.
I don't remember them, but okay.
It was very minimal.
Jessica Chastain wouldn't have been cast as one of them, just in
right.
passing. But anyway, who's up next? Tyler, did you say your number 5?
No, my number 5 is Memento. Great movie. Yeah, one of the first movies that I saw where I was like, this is a fucking film, and like this is what I want to do for a living. Like it's a great film.
It's mind-boggling that he was able to create a narrative story going backwards that way. It's just insane.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it's
the
like
only
up there with.
That's the only way we could capture his confusion. Right. That's the only way we could be as confused along with him as if they told that story backwards. If we told it forwards, then we would have known the whole story the whole time, and we wouldn't have been confused. Like we wouldn't have been going through what he was going through. So yeah.
Well, and it's also like one of the greatest movies ever to watch when you're 14, like right after you just watched like Fight Club and Reservoir Dogs for the first time, and then the person that's showing you these movies is like, now this one's the one that's gonna like really kick it home for you. This one's great.
Exactly.
My number 4, which is tied for 3rd, is Dunkirk, and I'll save the conversation for when we go along.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 4 is Inception. I almost had it higher. It was hard. Inception. It's hard once again, but it was. Man, I think my second favorite film of 2010. It is a great film.
When you walked out of that theater with Inception, this is why Inception's so high on my list. The jaw on the floor dragging. Like I almost trip on my jaw as I'm walking out of the theater after Inception, and it's time's gone by, and the thrill is gone, and a lot of people just say it's a dumb heist movie that just has these bows wrapped around it, and fine, for better or for worse, but what do you go for a movie for as an experience? And when I walked out of that theater, you could not have had you could not have had closed my mouth from how agape it was after that experience.
That was an experience, yeah.
And it is one of those movies that was so great that I watched it too many times and ruined it for myself. Like I haven't watched it in 2 years now, but it also it introduced me to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's like one of my top 5 actors. Like I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Also in multiple,
thank you, Inception.
Also in multiple Christopher Nolan movies.
Yeah, I think just 2. Yeah, that one in Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And so what's your number 4, Tyler?
My number 4 is Batman Begins. Great movie.
Nice. And hold on, Derek, you haven't said Batman Begins yet, have you?
No, I have. Batman Begins was my number 8.
Okay. Just making sure. I was like, geez, they have that top 3, huh?
You should, Dylan, I'm going to send you my list after the podcast is done. You should include it in the episode description or like put an article on the website or something, so that because it's even hard for me to keep track of your guys'. I'd like to see them all back to back.
I've
side to
considered
side.
doing that, but then it spoils the list for the podcast. Because I've always considered doing that and putting it in the show notes. But I don't want to spoil the list.
There has to be some way to do it for people that listen to the podcast.
I don't want people just to go and look at the list and then move on.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I have thought of that many times. But anyway, what were you going to say? You said also?
Oh, I didn't say also. We should continue.
My number 3, which is tied with Dunkirk, The Prestige, and Memento for number 3, is Interstellar. Like I said, it gave me a similar vibe than I got to Inception when I walked out of that theater. I was very impressed. I thought the experience. The movie's not perfect. They really could have shaved a half hour off the movie too. To be honest, it probably would have been for the movie's benefit.
Definitely.
And talk about a runtime with a movie that's just perfect as Dunkirk. My goodness. But yeah, Interstellar is my number 3. Which number 3, Derek Miranda?
My number 3 is Memento. Once again, yeah, like Tyler said, like this is one of those movies, you know, you watch where, you know, I'm a teenager and it's just like, wow, like I have not seen something like that before. It's just like masterfully crafted. It's one of his just most well-directed films. Like it's so complex, the way he messes with time and these twists and turns. It's just such a well-made film, and it's so enjoyable. And yeah, it's I love it.
It's so insane to me that somebody has bought up the rights to Memento and is like, yeah, I'll remake that in 2017. That's a good idea. Like that's
why?
Happening right now. Why is that happening?
Why would you?
It's just like this weird company that buys properties that nobody's using for like $1 million, and they're like, direct to DVD, it's going to be terrible. I'm excited for it.
I think what they're doing is they're going to use that same concept with a different story. And I'm going to be open minded to everything that I can as long as I can. I know that we're all everyone's upset, irritated with all the remakes and sequels and all that kind of stuff, but you know. Sure. Randomly you get like a Mad Max Fury Road, and randomly you get like the Dark Knight, or like, you know, you randomly get these remakes or sequels that actually completely blow you out of your seat. So who knows?
Right, but it's not a real studio making it though. It's like a company that just like buys up stuff and makes a bunch of schlock. Like it's definitely going to be a direct to DVD, really terrible, like Butterfly Effect 3 status. So don't get your hopes up, man. I don't know.
Won't get my hopes up, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Okay.
What's your number 3, Derek? Or did you just say it?
I just said it. Tyler's turn.
My number 3 is The Prestige. I don't know. I love the performances in that movie. Like, I think that Christopher Nolan, sometimes his films, the performances are kind of whack a little bit, kind of flat, but The Prestige, they fucking kill it. And Hugh Jackman, one of the people that doesn't return to his films later on, does such a great job in that movie. I just love those characters so much.
And the rivalry between them is shown so well and so understandable. And neither started it, right?
Right.
But you know, you can understand they could never forgive each other as things have time has gone on. But fantastic movie, fantastic reveals.
And I watched The Illusionist so many times when I was a teenager, and I wish that I would have found The Prestige earlier, because it's a much, much better film. You know, when they like competed in theaters, they were in theaters like a week or two apart from each other, and The Prestige is definitely 1,000 times better.
It was one of those Deep Impact Armageddon
and Slug's Life sort of deals.
Saving Private Ryan, Thin Red Line,
Dante's Peak, and Volcano.
Yes,
Shark Tale.
Anyway, so it's anybody that's looking to rewatch that movie, I feel like a lot of people haven't seen it in a long time. It's on Netflix, so go check it out. It's you can watch it for free. Number 2, drum roll. I feel like, I think we're all gonna have the same number 1, but anyway, number 2 is Inception. I already said about this already. I kind of made my piece about this. You know, that's one of, like, there's certain movies that I walk out and my mind is blown. The Matrix is one of them, where I'm like chasing that dragon to get that experience from a movie. When I walk out, and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe what I just watched. Inception was one of those movies for me, and you know, that's what I go for the movies for, and that's what I got with Inception. It's my number 2. Derek.
My number 2 is Dunkirk.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay.
Did you get that experience out of Dunkirk when you left the theater?
I did, but at the same time, I think I'm still on like a high from it. Like, I just saw it. So, I mean, it could drop. It really is, you know, it's at the moment right now where I'm like, yeah, like it's I'm not going to be like, oh no, I didn't love it as much, but it might be where down the road, like I drop it down just in the Nolan rankings, just because I'm like, oh, you know, as much as I loved it, maybe I did love Inception more, Memento more. It's once again, it just comes back to how hard it is to rank his films.
I think also having a reasonable runtime really puts it up higher on my list than it would have been otherwise. Like if this movie was 2.5 hours long, maybe I would have been a little bit peeved about it. Hour 48 or whatever it is perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
And
my number 2 was Inception, which I mean we already talked about. A great film. I mean the effects in there fucking insane still. I mean it's only been 7 years, but still, you know.
Again, playing with time in similar ways where
Yeah.
They had
The levels is really cool.
right, like where just like the same stuff that was happening in Interstellar, where time traveled differently depending on the level that you're on, and how you can get lost in it, and how you can become obsessed with this, and the tokens that they had, and that his wife that killed herself is chasing him in all of the dreams. All of it together was just so fantastic. So yeah.
Can I say one thing about Inception, though? I'll admit there's one thing. I think the one thing that does bug me about that, it's always kind of bothered me, is, he's like, oh, like, Inception's real. Like, I know it works because it worked on my wife. And he's like, I caught her, and the whole big reel that she's like, I can't believe you betrayed me like that. Like, you told me that, like, we have to kill ourselves to wake up. And I'm like, well, yeah, like, isn't that kind of obvious? I don't know. Like, that's the one thing. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I guess that was kind of the one thing that bugged me about it. They made it seem like this grand secret, but it was just. Well,
I think it's just that killing yourself is pretty counterintuitive. I think people just wouldn't think like, I guess I should just kill myself. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, that movie was my introduction to Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
The first time I ever saw Tom Hardy was in that movie.
Actually, Band of Brothers was my introduction to Tom Hardy, but
yeah, but did you watch Band of Brothers and then come out of it and say like, man, that guy was the real highlight?
No,
like, he wasn't
that's
the
true.
Standout star.
Just like Vin Diesel being in Saving Private Ryan,
Iron Giant.
I figured that out years later. I was like, whoa, Vin Diesel was in Saving Private Ryan. I didn't remember that. Like, no. So yeah, I guess Band of Brothers was my introduction to Tom Hardy. I just didn't remember it.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean now. All right, I'll give you that.
Obviously, everybody's number one. It's the same. Makes sense. It would be hard for this not to be number one on most people's list. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's The Dark Knight. It'd be on my top, probably top 5 of all time. It would probably make it.
It's in my top 5 of all time.
Definitely my top 10. We all knew it would look like it was going to be a cool movie. None of us knew. I don't think anybody knew it was going to be
right. I didn't even see it in theaters. I saw it on DVD, and I was like, "What is wrong with me?" Yeah, yeah. I mean, I loved Batman too. I don't know why I didn't see it in theaters. It just like totally went over my head. I didn't even know it was coming out somehow, and then I just like watched it on DVD when it came out at Christmas. And man, that movie's fucking great.
The guts to kill off some characters too, and have that driving the characters the way they do. The fact that it's not about saving the world, it's about saving, like, the final battle comes to saving a ferry full of people, where we already feel like in the movie that anybody could die because we've already seen one of the main characters get killed by the Joker.
Right.
So the idea that we feel like this could happen rather than
the stakes are real. The stakes
are real. Rather than we know that there's another Avengers movie coming out, so when the world's about to get blown up, we know it's not going to happen, and that's it's a real gritty movie. It has limited CGI for a superhero movie, which is insane.
Right. Well, and that's one of the big differences between making a movie in an isolated universe like that and doing something in a cinematic universe. When they kill off Superman, he's coming back. Like, even if it wasn't a thing in the comics that he comes back when he dies, which everybody knows, like, we know that's going to happen.
It's especially to happen in like the second movie of the series too.
Right. That's we don't need to talk about BVS. The movie fucking sucks. But I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, Dark Knight is just so fucking good, and like I don't like to think about like how much better The Dark Knight Rises would have been if Heath Ledger hadn't passed. Like, that would have been crazy. And I don't know. There's a parallel universe where that exists, and maybe it's trash. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe,
probably great.
It's probably great. It's in that universe. It's probably great. Yeah. I mean, I still remember seeing it the first time I saw it in the theater. It wasn't opening night. I was studying abroad in Europe. I was in Italy when it came out, but like we were coming back like a few days later. But our last night in Europe, our film teacher, like, we took him out to dinner, but he's like, we have to go to dinner later because he wants to go see The Dark Knight in Florence. And I'm like, how was it? And he was like, it was amazing. So the next day we fly back to the U.S. and like I land at night, whatever. And then the next day like literally the day after I got back from Europe, I went to see The Dark Knight with my friends, and I was just on the edge of my seat. Literally the entire movie. Literally on the edge of my seat the entire movie. I just had never experienced anything like that before. I had goosebumps. It was nuts.
And it's so crazy how much better it is even than Batman Begins, which is like Like Batman Begins, everybody remembers it so fondly now because we have The Dark Knight to make it look so much better. If that was like a one-off, and I can hear one of you snickering, I think that was Dylan. I mean, if it had just been a one-off film, it wouldn't have had that kind of impact, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, so yeah, there is the definitive ranking of Christopher Nolan. Let us know what you think. Tweet us in at The Watch and Talk, or email us thewatchandtalk@gmail.com, or facebook.com/thewatchandtalk. Let us know what your rankings are for these, or just top 3. Listener that's listening into the chat, by the way, everybody, we've been airing these live on YouTube, so if you go and subscribe to us on YouTube, just search for The Watch and Talk. You'll be able to get these live streamed and listen to them. Listener Paul, great listener, he gave his top 3 in the chat, and he said Dark Knight, Memento, and Prestige are his top 3. I'm assuming Dark Knight's number 1. He's a smart man. And then I responded to him that you bumped Inception, and he said Inception would be right below. So anyway, so
good ranking,
Paul.
Good ranking,
Paul. And we love to have people involved in these conversations. So just subscribe to us on YouTube, and you'll get a notification. I should be better at telling you guys when we're going to record. I've just been blowing that about tweeting and saying, hey, we're going to record at this time. But if you subscribe, then you'll get a notification on your phone when we go live, so you can listen in. Anyway, let's get to our review of the new Christopher Nolan film, Dunkirk. The plot summary of the film is Allied soldiers from Belgium, the British Empire, and France are surrounded by the German army and evacuated during a fierce battle in World War II. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a non-spoiler review for the movie. We're going to not talk about anything other than basically what we've seen in the trailer, our basic thoughts on it, and then give our letter grade. Then we'll switch to a spoiler section where we're going to talk in depth as if you've seen the movie. So also, go see this movie. What the hell are you doing? You should see the movie. This is kind of the must-see movie right now. So anyway, why don't we start off with Derek? Give off your basic thoughts on the film and what people should know about it before they go and see it.
Okay. I'm thinking how to start this. So basically, I obviously went in very excited. It's Christopher Nolan, one of my favorite directors, and it's tackling a subject I've always been fascinated by, which is World War II. You know, ever since a kid, since I was little, growing up watching Indiana Jones, and then when I was, 12, 13 years old, seeing Saving Private Ryan, World War II has always fascinated me. And to see, when I first heard that Christopher Nolan was making a World War II film, I'm like, just take my money now. Just take it now.
You actually put a $10 bill in an envelope and sent it over. Exactly.
It was already but inflation though, I was short a few bucks. But
yeah, and it wasn't IMAX also, but whatever.
Yeah, that's besides the point. But anyways, you just hear all this stuff, and he's making Dunkirk, and all I had really known about, as much as I've studied World War II, my actual knowledge of the Dunkirk incident was limited pretty much to the film Atonement. Which also, if you haven't, anybody has not seen Atonement, that's a fantastic film. And the Dunkirk, they have this Dunkirk just epic tracking shot, which is beautiful. So for that alone,
that is one of the best tracking shots in film history.
Is that of the actual battle or of the evacuation like this was?
It's not really battle or it's more just soldiers just at the beach waiting to get evacuated, but just how they bide their time, and it's just kind of chaos. But it's just beautiful to see. So I went in, kind of knowing that the general gist is, these Allied soldiers, this is 1940. This is before the U.S. got involved, pre-Pearl Harbor. This is just, in the West, it's just British and French soldiers trying to fighting the Germans. And basically they were just losing badly. So they get pushed up against this corner right across the channel from England, and they're just stranded there. And I was intrigued how he would, make a movie out of this, where it's World War II, but it's also just, they're kind of waiting to be evacuated. But oh my God, did he give us a tense film. And it's also, once again, of course, Christopher Nolan likes to shoot on film, 70 millimeter. I went, it's funny, when I first bought tickets to this, I bought tickets for the IMAX here, which is not a true IMAX film projector. It's a digital IMAX. But I have tickets for that because I'm like, oh, it's IMAX, it's a bigger screen. And then I'm kind of reading articles that kind of rank the formats. They're like, oh, many movie websites kind of broke down to different formats of ranking what you should see. And
what has journalism come to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was handy, though, because usually, like I said, I would go to Irvine to see, that's the closest, true digital 70mm. I mean, not digital, like film 70mm IMAX, but it's during Comic-Con.
Derek lives in San Diego, for those that
I live in San Diego, by the way. So it's a little over an hour drive to get to this Irvine theater, but it is the biggest theater I've ever been to in my life. And it's a true IMAX film projector. But I couldn't make it up there. It's during Comic-Con. Everybody, we're all busy. I'm like, okay, I'll just go to a theater here in San Diego. And so, I refunded my IMAX tickets and bought 70mm because that's what they said. They ranked the 70mm over digital IMAX. And man, am I glad I did that, because this was, you could just tell.
You could have done what I did and just go to see in both formats.
I mean, that probably will happen. I will also probably go to Irvine still to see it, because my friend, I know how much he wants to see it, because he's the one I go to most movies with, and he hasn't yet because he wants to wait for Irvine. So I will also go to Irvine and see this probably in the next week or two. But yes, anybody, just if you have the chance to see this in 70mm IMAX or just 70mm, please choose that over digital IMAX. Make sure your theater, which format the theater has.
I think anybody that had the option would probably choose that.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of you guys having, options of movie theaters. Like, I'm lucky enough to live in a town that has a decent enough theater with 550 matinees, which is great. But, like, I don't have options. There's no IMAX here. There's no, 4D experience or whatever it is. So,
where are you?
Small town in Western Washington. I'm like, I am an hour drive from Olympia. So if I wanted to go out there, I guess I could. But I don't know. It's not always worth the trip.
One thing I want to say before we continue too is just to kind of explain what the idea of the movie is. So the film is 3 different stories that interact and kind of intertwine with each other that are on different time periods.
Right.
The first one takes place over 1 week. So from start to finish of that story, it's 1 week. The second
is that the soldiers on the beach?
Right. It's called the Mole.
Okay.
And the second one is the sea. People on the sea that are actually going to. They're leaving England and going to, or not England, but across the English Channel and going to try to get people and bring them back. And they're just civilians. And that's with Mark Rylance's character. And that's takes place over 1 day. And there's a dogfight over the ocean in planes that is with Tom Hardy. And that takes place over 1 hour. So you have 3 different time periods that are time paces that are happening at the same time, and it's extremely interesting. And then sometimes you'll see one thing that happens at one point, and then from the other story you see that perspective from another angle. It's a really interesting way of telling a story. I've never seen anything like that, really. And of course it takes Christopher Nolan to really want to toy around with time in a different way in another movie, which is when you think after 10 movies you're going to run out of ways to do that, but he somehow figured out a different way to tell it. And the reason he said he liked to do it,
did you guys
real quick, he said he liked to do it this way because when you hear stories of war, the story jumps around a lot to different times, especially when you see different angles of different things that are happening. So he wanted to have the feeling of a documentary in that sense, the storytelling being told in that way. So that's what he said, and I think it's kind of interesting. But anyway, what were you going to say, Tyler?
Did you guys understand that that's how the timeline thing was working out, like from Jump Street? Because that took me a little bit into the film.
No, it honestly, I was confused at first. Even like when they kind of like said like the Mole like 1 week, I was like,
right,
I don't understand what that means.
Because it doesn't say anything on the screen like the Mole, like this takes 1 week. It just says 1 week and then 1 hour or 1
exactly.
day.
So I'll admit, like there was a point. I was a little confused, and there was a point. Probably 20 minutes into the movie, half an hour, where I actually got a little upset. I was like, wait a minute, like that's not right. And then it hit, and then I was like, oh.
I would say that it takes up until
here.
You see characters from different stories sort of crossing over to understand exactly.
Guys,
and then I was like,
I mean, that's not a spoiler, is it?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I thought I was being chastised. Go ahead.
I had the worst. So I worked so hard to not see a trailer for this movie.
Okay.
Like Derek saw me leave the theater while a Dunkirk trailer played. I worked so hard, and that meant when I'm scrolling around on social media, being like, nope, skipping the Dunkirk. Barely saw more than 2 seconds at a time of Dunkirk.
Right.
Like if I'm watching TV and it comes on, I blah 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 and look like a weirdo in front of my friends. I've worked so hard tirelessly to not see a trailer for this movie, and my experience for seeing it was completely blown. I got a 70 millimeter screening, which I regret doing for this reason.
Why is that?
Trailers, they don't have trailers on film. So
Well, they had a couple.
Yeah, they had 2. And normally they do 20 minutes. So every time I go to the theater, because I'm trying to avoid all trailers at all costs for the most part, I go to the movie 15 to 20 minutes in and get there perfectly on time at all times. Or sometimes I'll even dilly-dally and kind of wait in the lobby and wait till the 20-minute mark, and then I'll go into the theater. Works like clockwork. But this had 2 trailers in it. And I was on my way, and my friend texted me that was already in there, and he said the movie's starting. And I'm still on the road on the way there. I'm close. I'm about 5 minutes away from parking, but the movie is already starting.
Oh.
So I got into the movie.
I would pick a different screening at that point.
I went to the movie 12 minutes in.
Ooh, yikes. Okay.
That just makes me sick to my stomach to even think about having to go through that
guys,
scenario.
I didn't know anything. I didn't understand the 1 week thing. I didn't even understand. Guys, listen. I didn't even understand that Dunkirk, that they were trying to evacuate across the English Channel.
No,
and that
that's just the movie. Though.
That they were.
That's the thing is,
But
sorry, go ahead. I'm not trying to talk.
No, when I rewatched it, there's huge things that happen. Like there's pamphlets that drop from the sky that say you are surrounded. I didn't know they were surrounded by Germans. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the historical situation that was happening. So it was an incredibly terrible experience. I figured it all out by the end, but think all the time I was supposed to be experiencing the moment instead of being like, wait, what's happening? Why is this happening? What's going on? Also, without knowing that and without having that really, it was dampened so much. Well, I guess I'll talk about that. I guess there's a moment at the end that was dampened because I didn't know what everybody's goal was. I didn't even know what the goal was through the movie.
Right.
So I had a really shitty first experience. I went and rewatched it in IMAX today and had a much better experience. And I did a lot of reading about it and did a lot of studying about it. Right. And I'm way more comfortable with the movie. But it was really uncomfortable when I walked out of the theater, and I felt like I just did such a disservice to myself because of that. And that's why I saw the Blade Runner trailer today, because I was like, I'm not risking it. I was there on time for this screening. But anyway.
I will say that I did see the entire movie. I've only seen it once, and I didn't know anything about, Dunkirk, the actual event going in. And I had the exact same experience as you did the first time watching it. Your second time, you understood like the plot of the movie and the characters and what was going on enough that you picked up more from it. But going into the movie the first time knowing nothing, you really do just know nothing. You don't know who these characters are, really what they're trying to do. And if you miss like one line of dialogue, which is very easy to do,
especially
it's sort of a mumbling movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating. That was why it didn't really top my list of Nolan films. Like, it's hard to understand the character motivations. A lot of the characters feel weak just because you don't know what they're all about. And I know that that's intentional, but like it really does just alienate you from the whole situation sometimes.
Yeah. Well, trust me, I when rewatching, I'm like, I would have been much more comfortable than I was in my experience without seeing the opening titles and without seeing the 1 week, 1 day thing and that kind of stuff. So anyway, we completely have gotten off track. We need to get back to Derek for him to get his review of the movie, because all Derek talked about was the screening experience, and that's all.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, that's on me. I should have broken it down. Like, okay, like it really does. This film set up into the 3 parts: the on air, on the water and at the beach, and it's just the way. Like I said, at first you might be a little confused. And like I said, I was even like a little upset, like, oh, like no one knows better than this. And then like it starts to click, and I'm like, I was like, oh, he does know better than this. And you just start to see the way that these 3 different aspects fit together. And it's great because like Dunkirk was a different experience depending on who you are and where you were, and it shows all the different ways that people went through this ordeal,
right?
And how they helped or how they tried to escape or whatever. And it's just, I
also think hearing our explanation, I think anybody that hasn't seen it that's going to go see it is going to be way less confused because of our little explanation. So I think I think so.
it's funny also just like some of these characters. Christopher Nolan's been criticized for being kind of cold. For in his films, he's not overly sentimental, and it's funny. Like you kind of feel that with some of these characters, I guess, in a way. Like you're jumping around, so you're not fully get to know them as well as you could, I guess. But it's not.
Well, they also give them no backstory. They don't give them any character development.
Exactly.
At all.
You're just kind of thrown in, but it works. You're not like, oh, I can't feel for these characters, because even though what little and how it does kind of have that Nolan coldness, which I honestly don't have a problem with, like you still totally empathize with whatever situation they're in.
Because you're human. And they're humans,
Yeah.
and they're dealing with war. It's just like, it's the same thing with the beginning of Saving Private Ryan. You don't know anything about any of these people, and is that important? No, because that beginning opening sequence of Saving Private Ryan is one of the most incredible sequences in any film ever.
Exactly.
So yeah, anybody that's anybody wants to knock on the backstory, the character development, that's not what the story is. This story is about the war is the main character, not the characters themselves.
Yeah, but I will say that boiling down every single character to like their bare essential, like this guy is brave, or this guy has PTSD, or this guy is this, or this guy has a red sweater. Like after a while, it's really dehumanizing. And yes, the tension is in the situation that they're in, but then there are moments in the movie where you realize, like, I know nothing about these characters. And I guess that as an experiment of like, can I make a film this way? That's interesting. But as a viewer watching it for the first time, it's like not so enjoyable sometimes that they're doing that. It kind of feels like they're trying to play a trick on you that you're not in.
You need some shotgun story for everybody to be like, this person is a writer, and this person does this, and this person.
No, but I mean that's a war movie trope for a reason. I mean I just feel like some of the characters, like what can you say about the kid in the red sweater that's the son of the guy who I don't even know any of their names except for Georgie. That's a major issue for me, I think.
Well, George was the least interesting thing in the entire story. And we'll talk about that when we get to spoilers.
Yeah, he was pretty boring.
You're giving the example of the least enjoyable.
But that's what I'm saying though, is I don't know that anybody's names. I mean, I was talking about the kid in the red sweater though, that George's friend.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that the characters are kind of weak, and that's sort of a Nolan-y thing, is to have characters that say important things sometimes, or say smart things or poetic things, but don't have anything beneath the surface unless you watch the movie 6 times to understand what they're all about.
I just don't think it's important. I think when you see somebody drowning and struggling to get out of a boat to not drown, I don't think you need to know what their marital status or the way they grew up. I think that you're going to sit there and be like, oh my God, get out, go. How are you going to get out of this? You don't want to die. That's all I need to know, is that you don't want to die, because I know that humans in general don't want to die. So for me, it's not important at all. And honestly, it would have added time and added unnecessary things to try to make us care about a character that we don't need to care about a character necessarily. We need to care about these tense moments where they're in peril. Every single time you're sitting there going, go, without even knowing the person, even if it is the first time you've seen that person. Because you put yourself in their shoes, and you know you don't want to die. In battle, you don't know. When people are in war, they don't know the stories of all the soldiers around them, and they're still trying to save them and trying to help them, because that's the way that war is. From not my experience, I don't never experienced war.
Dylan's war experience.
Well, but
what happened.
But I will say that watching the movie for the first time, not really understanding the whole situation, the plot of what's going on, or what the character is about, I mean, it made me feel kind of dumb. And I don't think that I'm a dumb guy. I think I'm good at sitting there and watching movies, which isn't really that much of a feat, you know. But like when I'm sitting there in a theater feeling dumb because I'm not understanding what's going on, I don't know. It's just not such a pleasant experience the first time through. I mean, I'm sure that it'll be better on rewatches if I ever get around to it. But
if you ever get around to rewatching this movie, you're not sure if you'll ever watch this movie
7 on my list. That's the thing. I've tried to watch Interstellar again because I didn't enjoy it the first time, and I was like, maybe I'm not getting it. And I rewatched it, and I didn't enjoy it again. So maybe if I try and rewatch this again, I'll just be like, well, I guess that's a movie, and give up 20 minutes in. I don't know.
I don't think so. I understood, the thing with Interstellar, but I think this is one that on, subsequent rewatches that it'll it'll hold up for you. I think it maybe move up higher in your rankings. I feel like it'll have that effect.
I just rewatched it, and I felt like by the end of the movie, I understood it in my original watch. So I rewatching it didn't give me that big of a different experience. Except I got to watch the beginning freaking 12 minutes of the damn movie. But so it was a much stronger experience for me on the second watch because I was able to watch it all and I understood it from the beginning to the end. But when I initially walked out of it, I still enjoyed it. So
yeah,
I
can't say that your experience is going to be better, but my experience was better, but my experience was already positive.
Yeah, I just think that when a director demands that you watch their movie 2 or 3 times to enjoy it, they're sort of robbing you of, I don't know, the opportunity to go out and watch 100 movies. You know, I don't really have time to watch something 6 times. To get into it.
That's why I'm saying I don't think that's the experience it's gonna have. I had a better experience, but the real reason is because I missed the first 10 minutes. It's not. I on my second rewatch, I was looking at. I was trying to think. At one point would I be understanding? At what point would I be understanding? And all that kind of stuff. And I don't really have an answer for that because I watched it the way I watched it, and I can never change that. But there were, I think that, I feel like that the movie gave enough clues for you didn't need to know that they were happening on different timelines until you did. And once you did, you were like, oh, okay, that's what's been happening this whole time. It wasn't like you did not get the movie at all until that happened. You were still seeing people dealing with what they were dealing with. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Once you realized that they were on different timelines, that's when you needed to know. But you didn't need to know that before then. Anyway, Derek still needs to finish off his review.
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you don't say sorry. We're the ones interrupting you.
I was just trying to say that, it doesn't follow a lot of those war movie tropes where you get the entire backstory and, I got a wife and kids at home and I can't wait till my wife's pregnant and we're gonna meet Junior. He doesn't have that, but it works with that. You don't need it. It's fine. It's kind of a more objective look at things, but it's just still just the way he shot it and the way it's edited, and it's just so tense, and it's a loud, very loud film, but it's meant to be. It's just a well-crafted film.
While you're on the subject of that, there's the roar of planes that happen in this that will literally probably get you to try to cover your ears because it's jarring.
And the gunshots too. It's very loud.
And just some of the explosions.
But it wants you to feel like you're there.
The dive bombers were exactly.
The roar of those planes it was scary. It was scary. Continue. Sorry.
So once again, it's just, this is one of those films that it's going to give you an experience. You're going to go in and you're going to feel it. And I love what he did with it. I love that just some of the crazy camera angles with, they're on a ship and there's water coming in and it's just beautifully shot.
There's a lot of fantastic camera angles.
This I could easily see this getting a nomination for cinematography. It's not a stretch to say that's going to happen.
Yeah.
By any means.
It's not a stretch to say that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely it's going to get a nomination for cinematography, hands down, and sound and all that. Just technically, it's perfect. Technically, it's just and then just also story. Even though the characters aren't fully fleshed out, they're still, like Dylan said, you still feel them, you still get it, you're there. It's just there's not an aspect of this film where I'm like, that was dumb that happened. I can't think of anything. There's no moment that I can think of where I'm like, I don't like how they did that. It's just beginning to end. It's expertly made. I give it an A. A solid A.
Solid A. All right, Taylor. You've already said a lot of the things, but I guess continue where you were.
So, I don't know. I walked out of the movie sort of like how I walked out of Interstellar. I was like, I didn't really enjoy that. Maybe if I watch it again, I'll enjoy it more. I don't really know. I felt like there was something that I wasn't getting. And there's definitely films that I've seen in theaters and hated or not enjoyed and then gone home and watched them and enjoyed them more. I was
know exactly
reading
what you're going through, by the way. That's happened to me all year this year with movies that everyone says is so great. Baby Driver's one of them.
Right.
there's been plenty of movies where I was like,
Except-
there's something
except
wrong
that-
with me. Yes.
Right, except that I did love Baby Driver. Like, I didn't like the music so much in it, but like the story and the characters are so basic and understandable and relatable that I did. I mean, it's sort of like the opposite of this movie. Like, the plot doesn't matter and the characters are what really matter in that movie and the action. So I was like reading online message boards, stuff like that, like the Reddit discussion for the movie and stuff like that. And what I saw was a lot of people just talking about how great it was, you know, people saying how amazing it was and all of these things that I saw in the movie and I just didn't agree with. And then every once in a while I would walk by somebody that was like, yeah, but like, didn't it all kind of suck and it was terrible and there was this thing wrong with it or this thing? And I was agreeing with those people more. And I realized that like probably 1 in 10 people will just straight up not enjoy their experience watching this movie at all. Just because like there's a lot of technical issues that I didn't like and storytelling issues that I didn't like about it. And I mean, as a film, it's like a 9 out of 10, but like, as far as I enjoyed it, it's like a 4 or a 5, which is like a huge bummer because Nolan used to be one of my favorite directors. I think that lately this movie and Interstellar probably have had a huge issue with like this weird thing that he does when he's trying to immerse the audience with his dialogue and the way that his audio is recorded, where it's like muffled and like super bassy and hard to understand, and the characters, you know, he'll give them an interesting dialect or something like that that makes you just miss like huge key important plot points of the movie that you need to know to understand what's going on. And that happened to me a few times in this movie where I watched an entire scene and I was like, I have no idea what either of those two people just said, and I don't know what's going on. And that just felt, I don't know, kind of alienating.
Derek,
yeah.
Derek, I think you're tinkering with something, and it's really coming through really, really loud.
Sorry.
Can you not mute that? Oh, I guess you don't do a lot of post-production.
No, I don't. But I did. I took a timestamp right now so I can take me chastising you out. But
all right, sorry, I stopped.
Okay, continue. Sorry, Tyler.
I don't know. It was beautifully crafted. There were a lot of really great moments in it. The visual style of the movie reminded me of The Master, which is like one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. And there's a lot to like about it. And if you are one of those 9 out of 10 people that are going to love it, then you're going to love it, you know? I wasn't, so I don't know. I gave it like a C- on an enjoyment level, I guess.
What's the grade for the movie? We're not grading on enjoyment levels. We're just grading a movie.
Right. Well, my personal grade would be like a C-. Like I was saying, as far as crafted goes.
Brutal grade, man.
I know it is. I know it is because I didn't enjoy it, dude. I saw Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets the next day, and I enjoyed that more. And that movie's a piece of shit. Like, that's the thing. As far as would I go see either of these movies again, I would see almost any movie in theaters again, and I wouldn't want to see Dunkirk again. I would see War for the Planet of the Apes. I would see Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Valerian, Baby Driver. I'd see all those again. I would not see this again. So, yeah, C-.
Even though
I think that's the same score I gave Ghostbusters.
Would give you another perspective or another angle.
Yeah. I think that maybe I could show the film to somebody else and see it through their eyes and enjoy it more. So when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'll probably rent it and watch it with my friends.
Else watch it?
Right, but as far as my enjoyment of the movie goes, until I did something like that, I probably won't be watching it again. I don't know. I wish that I liked it more, you know.
Yeah, no, I've been in your shoes before, and I've been recording with people that are having my reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if they want to get mad at me, I'd just tell them to go fuck themselves. So I know what you're going through, and I'm trying not to be that person. So I'm just gonna understand that everybody experiences everything differently. So
right,
and it's not like I'm gonna be, you know, I don't even know. I don't know where this movie is on my list for my favorites of the year. I really enjoyed this, but my experience was really damaged from my rewatch. But I'm sorry, from my first watch. But when I rewatched it, I solved all of that, and I feel much more comfortable with the movie after that.
Well, and I think that what we're realizing is that me and you specifically, Dylan, have very drastically different movie tastes, because I think that you were much less hard on the Angry Birds movie and The Boss Baby when you came on my show.
It's just I just didn't care.
Yeah, and when I don't care about something, I give it a 3 out of 10. That's the thing. When I don't care, I'm disengaged, and that's worse than a bad movie in my opinion. But
Well, it's like
I don't know.
It's
That's
like
my review.
there's movies that I'll go on. I'm like, this is so bad that I have a million things to say about that. Those movies just aren't. They're just kids' movies. They're bad, and I just don't care. It's just like I just didn't care about the movies. I came, I'm like, yeah, these movies existed, whatever. Like, they're not for me. They're not good. Don't see them, and that's it.
I'm excited for you to watch Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets.
We'll
If we end up doing an episode on that, we'll have a lot to talk about.
I think later in the week, Tyler and I will be doing a podcast episode of that. But anyway,
I'm still excited to see that. I gotta say,
if you like bad movies, you're gonna love it. If you love Jupiter Ascending and the Phantom Menace,
sorry.
Dunkirk. All right, so this movie has no blood in it almost at all. At least
is it PG-13?
It is a PG-13 movie.
Okay.
But he said he didn't want it to be an action movie in that sense. But it's probably to get a PG-13 rating, I'm sure. But you know, and you do notice that it's not showing gore. To some point. So I don't know. I do wish that this was more Saving Private Ryan in that sense, but Christopher Nolan never seems to be that interested in that kind of storytelling. So sure, fine. But there's suspense in everything in this movie. There's suspense in watching a plane aiming at another plane. There's suspense in water flooding into a room, and you don't know what's going to happen. There's suspense in ducking and covering while planes are flying overhead. You don't know where bombs or bullets are going to fall. There's suspense in just swimming from one place to another. There's disorienting dogfights that are happening that are just incredible. Cameras strapped to ships while they're sinking in weird angles that you get to see a boat capsizing with the camera strapped to it. It's such an interesting way of shooting things like this. There's also deaths you wouldn't normally think of, like, for instance, somebody getting crushed between a dock and a ship, and you hear their bones crushing, and them screaming, but you don't see anything, right? Just random deaths like that happen. There's obviously a death that we can't really discuss that's like really kind of ridiculous, but there's a lot of deaths that are happening that's not a person and another person aiming at each other and shooting. It's just deaths that happen because it's a dangerous environment that you're in, and anything can happen. And you see a lot of deaths. You're like, dang, it's like you could die just eating your breakfast when you're in these situations, right? You could die at any time. It's not like where you think of war. It's like you think you're just going out there and you're going and shooting. These people, they have a sense of safety and they die. You know, they feel that they're not safe and they die. You could die at any time. And you also see when you survive after a plane goes through and dropping bombs, you're just lucky. That's it. You're just like, oh. And the people don't even look and react at the people that did die because they're so desensitized to it. It really stuck with me. The score was unbelievable in this. It changes everything with the score. There's actually Hans Zimmer actually Christopher Nolan had him record his pocket watch tick 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 sound and put it in the score as part of the score from his own pocket watch that he has. But in general, there's so many different things that happen. Also, there's somebody that when bombs are dropping overhead, he dunks underwater and covers his ears so the explosion isn't so loud. Things like that happen that I think are so cool to show different things you'd never think of that people would be doing. I just feel like I saw aspects of war and things of war that I haven't seen before in this movie, so I appreciated that. The three different time periods that are happening is incredibly engaging for me. And you say, oh, that's what was happening, or oh, that was them in this scene, or whatever the situation is. It made it feel like Christopher Nolan in this movie that otherwise doesn't feel like Christopher Nolan, if that makes sense. But in general, this is, I think, the first movie this year that I went and rewatched in the theater. Obviously, I had a good reason for it, but I would have anyway. I did want to see this on a different format, and I did want to see this again. And the movie was short enough to do that. I can't do that with a 2.5-hour movie. This movie's an hour and 40 minutes. I always talk about how often did I look at my watch? How often did I look at the time while I'm in a movie? I didn't do it once in this movie. The runtime is pleasant. I definitely enjoyed that. It doesn't overstay its welcome, which is good. Yes, right. And except for when it seemed like the movie was ending, I looked at the time to be like, this movie can't be ending right now, can it? And then it ended, and I'm like, what the hell? It ended right now? Like, are you serious? That quickly? That's insane. But anyway, for me, although I wish I could go back in time and see this movie for the first time the right way, unfortunately I didn't. I agree with you. I almost should have just bailed it and went to another screening. I should have just done that, but for some reason, I just couldn't believe that the only 2 trailers had happened. I was like, there must be wrong about something or something. But anyway.
See what happens when you try to avoid trailers? This is what happens.
Yeah.
Man. I hope you learned your lesson.
Also, I couldn't really rebook anything because this was during Comic-Con. So I had to go to Comic-Con after the movie. So I was kind of stuck in a bad situation. So anyway, I give it an A-. I absolutely I loved it. It's one of my favorite of the years so far. And I recommend anybody see it. And Tyler's on drugs. Anyway,
yes.
We'll switch.
I mean, I should have seen this movie. No, I shouldn't have seen this movie high. That wouldn't have helped it at all. But
it could have. But
maybe no,
maybe.
it wouldn't have. No.
I think this is the kind of movie, if you like to use marijuana before seeing a movie, this would be a movie to see it under the influence of marijuana. Anyway.
No, a strong disagree. Valerian, yes. The new Spider-Man, yeah. Like a Star Wars movie, yeah. Not Dunkirk.
I don't know how you could possibly make that argument, but anyway, let's wrap things up.
Who wants to get high and go be sad or stressed out? That's I don't know.
War
man.
movies for me were because I put myself. I mean, I'm not talking about my use of marijuana ever. I don't use marijuana. Anyway, let's switch to let's tell people where they can follow us on the internet in case we lose some people. Where can people follow you?
Oh, sure,
Derek.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Derek Miranda 85. Derek is spelled the correct way, Derek.
No offense to anybody that has it spelled the wrong way out there.
Offense, you're wrong.
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
wrong.
Yeah, feel like shit. Yeah, you're a bad person.
Where can people follow you, Tyler?
I'm at Future Horse Pod on Twitter, and if you want to check out my podcast, the Cynical Cartoons Podcast, every week we either watch something good or something bad, or interview people in the animation industry. And we're going to be talking about Rick and Morty a lot when that's coming up. This week we're going to be talking about the Emoji Movie, which is going to be a real piece of work. I'm excited because I love bad movies. And don't let my opinion of Dunkirk taint your opinion of me, because I'm actually a delightful person who likes good movies.
Yeah, I know, but again, he's going through the same thing I went through with Baby Driver. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't want to be a negative Nancy all the time, but
yep. You don't want to lie in a review. I've definitely lied in reviews before to not sound like an asshole.
Me too.
It feels bad and it's disingenuous.
It was The Jungle Book. I didn't like The Jungle Book when I saw it, and I know we keep getting off topic. I didn't like the Jungle Book remake from last year, and I said I did, and then I listened to somebody review it. It's not that I lied. I was just like, I just didn't know. I just didn't have my finger on my pulse on it. I just knew something was wrong, but I didn't know that it was that I didn't like it. It's hard to explain, but it's just, especially because it was like a 99% Rotten Tomatoes. Everyone was saying how much they loved it, and I was like, something's wrong, but I don't know what it is, and I just have to give a review, so I'm just going to do this. And then I listened to somebody say that, I'm sorry guys, but I didn't like this on a podcast about reviewing it, and I said that moment, I'm never going to lie again. I'm going to. I don't care if everybody in the world likes it. If I don't like it, I'm going to say that I didn't like it. So I respect.
I lie consistently to spare the feelings of my friends. I lied to my brother about liking Dunkirk. I lied to my friends about liking movies when we leave them all the time, because I became the guy who would walk out of a movie and shit on it and ruin it for people, and I don't want to be that guy. I'm a fun-loving guy.
You don't like anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure Derek thinks that of
and
me.
especially when it's somebody who's
Dylan's crazy. The Jungle Book was amazing.
I mean, especially when it's somebody whose opinion I greatly respect, like my cousin who introduced me to a lot of my favorite movies. Like, I just lied to him about liking Interstellar, and then eventually told him the truth, and he got very hurt by that. So that was weird.
To go back a little bit. I don't know how anybody could like The Jungle Book. That is the worst child actor of all time.
No, I enjoyed it.
He interacted with fake things,
and he did it terribly. And he did it terribly.
Didn't. I think he did.
I don't think he's the worst child.
The whole movie.
I don't think he's a worst child actor of all time. I'm being hyperbolic, but it's a bad child actor if you ask me.
I thought he was I thought he was great.
I enjoyed the whole movie. The songs were a bummer. They needed to have the Friends Like These Vulture song, and Bare Necessities was just sort of lazy. Bill Murray did not do a good job in that movie.
I don't think Christopher Walken did a good job in the movie. Anyway, we're done.
But at least he was hamming it up.
Guys,
Bill Murray was just like,
guys, let's rate it in.
Yeah.
Next week we're going to be reviewing Atomic Blonde, and I swear we're going to talk about Atomic Blonde more than we've than the Jungle Book. And then pretty sure, 90% chance sure, this week Tyler and I are going to do a review of Valerian. So tune into that. Woo. And without further ado, for the show, you can for me, you can follow me at Chuck. So that's SCHUCKSTER. That's in the show notes. You can also follow the show at The Watch and Talk. Email us at thewatchandtalk@gmail.com. Go to our website at thewatchandtalk.com or our Facebook at facebook.com/that's The Watch and Talk. And without further ado, let's switch to spoilers. All right, I got a ton to discuss. First thing I want to say is that I walked out going, Tom Hardy got captured.
Yeah,
it's interesting that they showed him get captured instead of getting killed. Like that was a good thing. Like we felt good when he landed, and we saw the malfunction with the landing gear, and we were like, no, especially because we just saw the hatch malfunction on the other person's plane, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, also the way he's cranking it, and you're like, he's getting close. You're like, dude, like I don't know if he's gonna.
And you see the shadow,
That was another very suspenseful scene, like you said. He just made everything suspenseful.
Yep.
Well, so how far is this before the end of World War II? This is quite a bit, right? Because this was before American.
Yeah, this is before American. He's going to be 1940. This is early.
Wow, Jesus. So if he doesn't get killed, then he's going to be a prisoner of war for a very long time.
Yeah, he'll be a prisoner of war for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and his character's not real, so I want to do some research to find out what happened to him, but no, I don't get that.
I mean, I'm sure that it's just a culmination of several different people that actually did.
Right. So the obsession with the airplane fuel I thought was really suspenseful too, and we see him. That was cool. Because we don't really necessarily get exactly what's going on, but we basically see him doing his calculations and deciding that he's not going to go back.
When he's there and he sees that the bomber's coming for the ship, and you see him thinking, what's he gonna do?
And then he was the only plane out there, so if he didn't go out there, he was the last line of defense, and these people were gonna get slaughtered. So he said, you know what, I'm gonna sacrifice myself, assuming he wasn't gonna make it. I do wish that we don't know what their parachute capabilities are, because I wish he just jumped off at the beach of Dunkirk and was able to get out of the plane that way. But
that's what I thought he was gonna do. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
But yeah, and it's also in fairness, it's hard to believe that he could shoot down a dive bomber while gliding. But whatever, it's not the end of the world.
It was cool though. It was really cool.
What about the soldier holding his breath underwater with fire burning over him, and we see him be like, I gotta go and get my face burnt off now. Also, going up there to get oxygen, there's no oxygen because you're in the middle of a fire, so it's not like you get the oxygen that you're looking for, but you can't help but swim up.
At the same time, you're drowning. You're about to drown. Like you're not thinking clearly. You're just reacting at that point. You're just doing whatever you think in the limited capacity you can think will make things better. And it's like, he just had to. He was drowning. He had to get out of the water, and didn't work out.
I want to talk about that French guy, the French soldier who was unnamed. So for our viewing, we thought he was German too before they even got suspicious of him. We were like, this is a German. This guy. I felt like a lot of people probably thought that, right? Did you think that too when you were watching it? And either of you?
I didn't really. It didn't cross my mind.
Did you think he was?
I was having a hard time distinguishing the characters from each other. I mean, I saw him burying another person at the beginning, but we see him tying up his shoelaces while the guy's barefoot, so we realized that he took his uniform. I see what I thought was happening was that the war wasn't actually over. I didn't know that they were supposed to be evacuating Dunkirk at the time. I thought that those two were posing as other people so that they could be evacuated. So I thought that's what that was all about, and I didn't realize that guy never talked because maybe I just wasn't paying much attention to his character. But I don't know. I mean, I never thought that he was German even when they were up in his grill about it. I don't know.
The person I was with, where we whispered to each other that we think he's a German, and when they said it, we were like, "Oh, we called it," but then he ended up being French.
I guess that's why I never thought he was German, because you go back to the scene where they're carrying the guy on the stretcher because that's their way to make sure they get on the boat. Yeah. So that's why it was like this guy's desperate just to get away from the Germans. Was that's why it never crossed my mind.
Well, for me, I guess another reason I thought it is because I didn't realize that they were there was a siege around them. So for me, I was just like, oh, this is just a war, and he's trying to get out of it. Instead of realizing that if he was a German, he would have just gone back. So I guess that's probably why I thought that. But did Derek and you and I talked about this a little bit when we talked about it at Comic-Con. Did it seem like one of the people chained him?
I think so.
On rewatch, I'd listened for it, and it did sound like he was hitting a chain.
I thought I could hear some chains clinking because it's like, how could he not just get out with everybody else? It looked like there was something.
A weird decision.
It's not like there was too tight of a hole. It looked like he was trapped somehow.
It was a weird decision to not explain that. I was watching Alex, which is Harry Styles' character, to see if he went up and did something to him before, and he didn't. So anybody could have at any time, but it wasn't him, because I was thinking it could have been him that did it, because he was the one that was saying, "Get this guy off. We're gonna kick him off," or whatever. But yeah. It's did you have any theories on that, Tyler?
No, not really.
You didn't.
I mean, I didn't have anything to say about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I get the impression that one of them attached him to it, and it was interesting that wasn't open. But there's a lot of things that happened that weren't spoon fed to you, just like the at the end of the movie when the character Alex thought they were coming back as failures, and he passed by that guy who was blind, and he thought the guy wouldn't look at him, and then afterward the next character goes and then feels his face, and we realize that he's blind, but Alex didn't see that. So it was interesting that they didn't spoon fed exactly what was happening from that you just kind of had to figure things. Also, something they didn't spoon feed at all was when they were stuck in that boat and it was getting bullets shot at it, and we only see it from the inside perspective. We never see it from the outside, except for later in another time period we see it getting shot at from away. But it was interesting. It was very claustrophobic, that scene, to see bullets flying in and they don't know where they're coming from, and there's nowhere to hide in that boat. There's no cover because the bullets could be coming from anywhere.
Mm-hmm. That was like a scene that frustrated me because I was just like, do something. Do something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, what could they do though, right?
Yeah, but my thing was, if it's your own guys target practicing, because that's what they thought, I'm like, stick your head out of the boat and be like, dude, stop shooting at us. We're in the boat.
I don't think it was their own guy. I think it was Germans.
Well, yeah, I think it came out that it was Germans, but when they thought that it was their own guys just target practicing, I'm like, then stop.
When they said target practice, they weren't implying that it was their own guys. I think they were implying that it's Germans doing target practice.
Okay, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that.
Because they're the ones that are sitting around bored, just holding a perimeter and letting planes come over and shooting them like fish in a barrel, as I said.
Right.
That's true.
Well, so talking about the character thing that I was talking about earlier, did either of you have a moment in the movie where you felt like, now that we're in spoiler talk, any of these people really meant more than just like a basic emotion or a basic feeling of like, this person has PTSD or this person is scared or this person's brave? Like, there wasn't a moment that really gave me more nuance to any of these characters in the film.
I don't know why that's something you're looking for in this film, though. That's what I don't understand. I don't understand.
I think that's something that I'm looking for in every film. I want to understand who a character is.
So, can you watch a documentary? Can you enjoy a documentary when you're not getting character development, but you're just getting told a story about an event? Because this movie was about the event, not about the bullshit characters that they're going to come and give you some cliche backstory to. Like, this isn't a mistake that he did this. He purposely did it.
Yeah, I know that was intentional. Yeah, I mean, I guess that if that's the case, then I'll say I would have liked to have watched a Dunkirk documentary. But the thing about a documentary is that they still give you an idea of who these people are. They'll have talking heads where the people come in and they say like, well, at the time, my dad was a farmer and I wanted to amount to more than that, so I wanted to be in the paper or something.
I think the documentary would be saying this is what happened in the Battle of Dunkirk, and this is what happened, and soldiers tried to do this, and then from over the sky, they wouldn't even be. There's some documentaries that would be focusing on people, but plenty of them would just be focusing on the events that were happening, not the people's backstories about them or whatever. It would just be saying this is what Germans were doing, this is what the Americans were doing, planes were flying overhead, this is what boats were doing, and people commissioned their personal vessels and went over to try. I think that's what it was trying to give you the vibe of, if that makes sense. Which may not be what you're interested in. It may not be the story you want to see, but that's what they were going for, I guess.
Right, and so that's something interesting about. Sorry. Go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just gonna say, if I had to pick a character, just that maybe I could, experience them, I could empathize with, that you could, say that was fleshed out. I guess Mark Rylance's character is the one I could think of the most.
Huh.
Maybe just that he was just so, we have to. He saw that, like, we need to go get our guys. Like, this is, we need to go do this.
Right.
Aspect of it.
I would say I think Tommy is his name. Who we, in the mole storyline, we get him from start to finish. I think he's the most audience surrogate character, but I think the character we as an audience root for the most is Tom Hardy. And I think the character that I say take him out of this fucking movie is George.
Yeah, George sucked.
Agreed.
He wasn't great.
Sucked.
It might have just been like the look of the actor, though, because he just looks like a real person and a real funky looking person. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not a beauty pageant. That guy was fucking weird looking.
Yeah, he looked weird, sure. But then to die that way, get pushed down some stairs, I know that can happen. So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, that's not real. It's not. But I was reading some people talking about it. There was some nurses and doctors that were talking about it in a Reddit post. They're like, you have maybe like a 1 in 100 chance of dying from that fall, and for a movie to focus on that, it was just like, why are you doing this? And then I don't get really what the payoff is, and how the character with the red sweater could be mature enough to say to the shell shock guy, yeah, he'll be fine. Like, I don't think we were given enough to even understand how he could possibly be mature enough to do that when the guy just killed his friend.
I think it's just because he changed as the film went on. Like the kid in the red sweater just sort of, I don't know. He came to understand what war is about and what it's doing to these people, and I guess that he realizes that this guy has like PTSD and he's been through a lot. Cillian Murphy.
Well, yeah, like the way
he doesn't
Mark
need that weight on his shoulders right now.
Yeah, like the way Mark Rylance explained it to me, he's like, oh, like he's in shell shock, like he's not himself right now.
Right.
I don't know.
He's not a coward.
But that was explained to him at the beginning. So I think that sure, but the dude just killed my friend, because we're trying to go back and save his comrades. I get these in shell shock, but I would be like, yeah, you just killed my friend, dude. I'm not gonna try to get you arrested or try to get revenge. He didn't really
know Georgie, though, did he? Like, I thought that Georgie was just sort of like this kid that like sort of lashed himself onto this mission, and they knew that there was a possibility of any of them dying.
Yeah, but he still knew them, though. Georgie still knew, the people at the boat. Like they.
Okay.
Yeah, they all knew.
He worked with them. It was the thing that latched on was that he wasn't supposed to actually go with them to Dunkirk.
Yeah. He was supposed to help them load the boat and then go back home. And then he's like, I want to come help. And they're like, all right, well, we have no say in it anyway, whatever. If you want to come help, you can come help.
But he did know him. Like, the two kids were, like, friends, I think, that had grown up together.
Yeah, the fact that neither Mark Rylance or, I guess his name's Collins, I think. Oh, no, Collins is the other side. I don't know. The names are not very clear in this movie, just in general, so whatever. The fact that they didn't react and they I don't know what that did for the story, really. There was a culmination of it with him getting his info in the paper, like that he did. I don't know. I just thought that was a little more of a detractor of the story than I don't know, facilitator of the story. So I guess if I want to give any bones to anything, and Tyler seems to be defending this character when I'm trying to throw Tyler some bones, the Georgie situation didn't work for me, really.
The whole thing with Georgie, like that was the only character that had like a backstory speech where he was like, my entire life, all I've wanted to do was see my name up in lights and be in the paper and make my family proud. And you're like, this guy's name might as well be dead meat. This is fucking stupid. Like, the only time they try and give anybody a backstory at all, it's just the most cliche, hacky, tropey. I don't know. That kind of bummed me out. Like, also, I thought, I don't know. Did Christopher Nolan write this along with his usual writing partners?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did Jonathan Nolan work on it with him and maybe like...
No. It's
okay.
Sole writing credits is Christopher Nolan. Sole obviously still directing credits. I have to say, in general, also, I know I feel like this is a mean-spirited attack, but I just have to say it. I kind of think Mark Rylance in general is kind of overrated. He doesn't really interest me that much as an actor. And I'm also thinking...
What else has he been in? I didn't really recognize... I mean, I recognized him, but I don't know what from.
I mean, he just won the Oscar for Bridge of Spies a couple years ago.
Yeah. And I guess what my complaint is, I think I'm just still mad at him for beating Sylvester Stallone for Best Supporting Actor for Creed that year. So I think that really bummed me out too, because I was like, this is a cardboard performance compared to Sylvester Stallone's.
I thought Stallone had that in the bag.
Yeah, he should have. It was so I think that's another reason why I look at Mark Rylance and I'm like, man, I really wanted Sly to get that one. But anyway, okay, so
Creed's fucking awesome.
That ship they go to when they first think they're getting out of there, and it gets hit with a torpedo. I found it really interesting that they showed the door when it was closed. They showed the door closing to the chamber that they're all in. And I was like, that's going to come back into play. Like, they're going to get trapped in here or something like that. And then to see the torpedo come and hearing all the people yelling at them from the boats from far away, and we couldn't discern what they're saying yet. And then to see the torpedo approach suspensefully, like always, was incredible. And then, obviously, only two people get out of it is Alex, Harry Styles' character, and then the quote-unquote main character, as far as that goes. But I love that sequence and them getting out of it. And the fact that the French guy saved him, and if he didn't, he might have survived, because he probably wouldn't have gotten exposed by Harry Styles' character the way he did.
Yeah.
So
I think that he would have inevitably been exposed at some point. If he wasn't hanging out with the main character, then he wouldn't have been able to do anything, because he couldn't talk with an English accent or speak English, presumably.
Well, but the thing is, French is an ally, so being exposed isn't going to get you killed unless you have someone like Harry Styles that's like, look, this guy might be foreign, he hasn't spoken, let's kick him off the boat. I think that in most situations, people might be like, you snuck on, blah, 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 but it's not going to get him killed necessarily. But, yeah, I mean, I see the point. But let's I want to talk about Tom Hardy's story, the Air story. I liked when we think from the perspective that his friend Collins, that he's okay, he's safe, and that Tom Hardy really checks on him to make sure he's safe, and then sees him waving goodbye.
It's a good moment.
And then when it turns out that he can't get that open, which is so frustrating, to see that a very long suspenseful going back and forth between the other time frames of showing that it was just so tense, and that we're also seeing that at the same time, it's going back and forth between that boat that was getting shot with bullets slowly sinking. So I love that when it switches between two different stories, it's showing something similar happening. Like this was a plane sinking and a boat sinking. So even though you're jumping between different stories, you're dealing with the same amount of tenseness in both scenes. There's also some sequences where airplanes are in one timeline are diving in at somebody, and then there's another one of airplanes diving in at somebody in another time zone, and he pieces them together, which I thought was really brilliant of a way to do it, because then you're not taken out of the tenseness of one scene. You're just getting added to it between the two different things that are happening similarly, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yes.
And then also people were complaining that what are the odds of the plane, his Spitfire, landing closely to Mark Lance's vessel, and that was a coincidence. But when reading about it, when planes were going down, they oftentimes seeked out boats and tried to glide and land close to a vessel to be able to get saved. So
exactly. That's what I looked at it as, like that was on purpose.
Yep.
Like, he saw the boat and he tried to land.
That's
just, I mean, the law people thing to do.
We see him at first, and he's considering bailing out with his parachute, and then he goes, "Oh no!" and he closes it back up, and he keeps gliding. I think it's because he saw the boat and wanted to get closer to the boat, which I thought was interesting. Again, they didn't spoon feed you that, right? They just see him making a decision, but we don't really get exactly what he's deciding. What do you think about? This is kind of going off subject, but the locking the door. That was like, why is he doing this? For Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, I guess he just, because Cillian Murphy's like, oh, like we can't do it. So he's probably just like, oh, like I'm gonna make sure that he doesn't make trouble. Like he was just trying to. I don't know. It was just kind of a rash teenager trying to be like, oh, I'm hoping.
Yeah, bad decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's inside that vessel was really tense. Like you said, when the guy went to go patch the hole and then he got shot, and then they had to like suffocate him to shut him up.
Mm-hmm.
Gnarly. Just to know that they have to kill a friend right now, otherwise he's gonna be screaming and getting them all killed.
Also the scene where the one ship goes towards the end where the ship goes down and there's all the oil in the water.
Yeah.
And then Tom Hardy's character shoots down the plane and he's like, we gotta start moving now. And you're like, oh my God, like this is about to get insane.
Yeah. And also the fact that then we have our main quote unquote main character. He's held underwater and we don't know who it is. And we don't even know that this is them until Georgie is identified as dead, and we see Harry Styles turn around and say, "He's dead, mate." And then we're like, "Oh, that was the ship." We might have already figured that out before then. Some people might have already figured it out before then.
You didn't recognize it?
I did, but that was a confirmation that we didn't know that Harry Styles was in the boat until then. We turned around and said, "He's dead, mate."
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, we kind of pieced together that was that boat. Which is also weird that they were in there stuck on the sand and they're stuck inside and out of nowhere they're in the middle of the ocean. But
remember the tide was rising and they were kind of waiting for it. So
it was just interesting that it didn't show it from outside. It only gave you their perspective, which I appreciated. It wasn't the most comfortable of perspectives, but it was uncomfortable the way they wanted you to feel.
Yeah, I mean, just the way it showed how they played with time. Also, Cillian Murphy's character. How you first see him in some people tell me Cillian's Killian. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Cillian.
It's Killian. He calls himself Killian.
Well, it's 2-1, bro. Okay, you're probably right.
Two wrong people to one right person. I've actually researched how to pronounce his name. So
we still have the majority. I guess this is your podcast.
Hey.
Either way, when his character, you see him on this boat, and you see him in Show Shock, but then you see him again, the scene where they're rescuing the guys, and he's like, and you can see he's a guy in charge.
Yes.
And it's crazy how you didn't see
how
his boat get sunk.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't see how he got this.
Yeah.
Because you're assuming you're going to see it happen.
Yep. On my rewatch, I was like, I missed something. I need to make sure to see that or pay attention to what background boat that's happening on. We never get any confirmation. We have no idea really at all. It might have been something that we saw in the background or something like that, but no, we did. But he did say U-boats, and we didn't see any U-boats except for the one that hit at nighttime.
Exactly.
That wasn't his because...
because I thought it was going to be that he was on that boat.
Yeah.
But then you see him rescuing,
them from that boat. Yeah. So
I guess the point of that is just to show, how many ships just got torpedoed or bombed one after another, just how, kind of helpless they were and how they really did need all these little yachts and sailing boats and whatever to come save them because everything else was just getting knocked off left and right.
Also, that boat had just sunk in front of him, and that didn't give him shell shock. So something way worse than that happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, one thing we haven't talked about too, Kenneth Branagh's character, who was based on a real colonel, but a commander. Sorry. But they changed his name, and that irritated the son of the person whose real name it was. But every time they showed him dealing with whatever the situation is, it didn't show what he was looking at. It was showing him reacting to it. There were all these close-ups of it, and the camera zooming in or panning out. The most obvious one of these is when he sees boats coming in, and he has a look of horror on his face. And we just get a quick glimpse of the boats from far away. And then the guy comes and hands with the binoculars, and this is just one long shot on his face where we see him looking at it with horror, and it turns to smiles. And he says, "What is it?" And what do you see? And he says, "Home."
Oh, yeah.
Which was an incredibly effective moment, especially because you think things are about to just get worse again. But they don't. They get better as far as that goes. And how the same thing happens when that final plane was taken down by Tom Hardy. We see Kenneth Branagh looking up at it in horror, and then...
And he's just accepted, I'm going to die right now.
Yep. He's like, all right, I'm going to die. And then Tom Hardy saved him, and then, we see his reaction of being like, oh, thank you. The colonel that was with him, the army colonel, was a problem for me, to be honest. He was there only for drama. He was pretty cliche. He walked up and handed him the binoculars instead of looking through them himself.
Yeah.
and he just would say like movie trailer lines, like lines that are just designed for a trailer, and saying them slowly with this cadence of movie drama that I think was a little jarring, but whatever, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and also to kind of close out some things that I want to discuss, the pilot, somebody passing by and saying, "Where the hell were you?" to the pilot.
Yeah.
Right, that's harsh, because the thing is, he was there and he got shot down, and then he was in the same boat as you guys, literally the same boat as you guys, and the harshness of that, right? Like that was a pretty brutal moment, but
then Mark Rylance is like you know, they know what you did.
Yeah, but it also showed you how starved they were for air support. They were defenseless against those planes without another plane. They even showed on the boat sometimes trying to have ground to air defense, but they just were useless.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to have
even like that. You saw the one soldier like early in the movie, like, where's the bloody Air Force?
Yes, right. It shows how just desperate they were and how probably pissed off they were, because they were at that point thinking about defending their own homeland, no longer defending France that had already fallen.
Yeah, they're like, France is lost. We have to focus on defending our island.
Right. And also, finally, too, that they thought that they were coming back as failures. And Alex was really freaking out about it. And it turns out they were welcomed as heroes and saviors, which I think was I think his Christopher Nolan really trying to discuss the difference between the perception of war from being there and from back home, and how different it can be. I think a lot of movies, Hurt Locker, I think that was its main focus of that movie, was telling the difference between actual war and the public perception of war. There's been plenty of movies that have done that, but or Born on the 4th of July was a big movie that was dealing with that as well. And that was just the kind of final point out about that I thought was pretty moving. In general, there's a lot of things that were super effective with this movie, and this movie should be broken apart and studied because there's so much to it. On a rewatch, I took more notes on my rewatch than I took on my original watch. So
really,
yeah.
Also, I gotta say, like I said earlier, like I got frustrated because the time aspect I didn't realize was the first time where you see them out on the boat and in the air, and it's daylight, but then you see, the guys on the boat and it's nighttime already, like on the ship. The soldiers on the ship, and I'm like, wait a minute, like they can't, like it's wrong. But that's when I realized, oh, like this takes place a couple days before everybody else, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah. But at first I was like, this isn't right. But see, Christopher Nolan, what are you doing?
But
and I was like, oh yeah.
There's a lot of movies that you don't understand things until you go along and you understand them. We all left the movie understanding it, so it's like I don't think it was a failure at all, because I think that we left the movie understanding that concept.
Exactly. It's just, like you said, like, Christopher Nolan does like to spoon feed you. He, right. He keeps you kind of guessing. He's not just going to give you everything on a silver platter, and that's an aspect of it.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, any final thoughts on anything that we didn't discuss?
No. I mean, I just think it'll be interesting waiting another 2 years to see Christopher Nolan's next film, because I really haven't loved something that he's put out since 2010, which is kind of a bummer because he used to be my favorite director, and now I'm kind of like gonna be apprehensive going into the next one. Well,
I feel bad for you. I've enjoyed everything that he came out since then, but then again, I'd had that with like The Hateful Eight with Quentin Tarantino. And
sure.
A lot of Steven Spielberg, where I was like, man, Steven Spielberg hasn't made a fantastic movie in a long time. And, I didn't like the last two Quentin Tarantino movies, so I know exactly what you're going through.
You didn't like Django?
No. I like
a
lot of Django, but once a certain character gets killed, the movie just becomes bonkers and unacceptable to me. Just stupid, bonkers.
I love that movie. I think it's great. It's enjoyable. I don't know.
I really like Django, but I thought Inglourious Basterds was vastly superior to it.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I would put Hateful Eight above Django. I really enjoyed Hateful Eight.
All right.
I rank it above Django. But I think I'm kind of in the minority on that one. I think most people prefer Django. But also, I'm not the biggest Jamie Foxx fan, so that's another thing.
Yeah, I'm not either.
After this podcast, I'm going to go watch Django. I'm probably going to go watch Jessica Jones again.
Actually, if I have to say one other thing about Dunkirk, I know that we kept talking about how great the running time was, but honestly, I would have been fine if it was longer.
Sure. Like every movie should make you feel like that, right? Like every movie should make you feel like you could have used more of it.
You want more.
Yes.
That's a good point. Like it leaves you wanting more. Like if also because all of his films are generally really long. It's been a while since he's had a short film. So when I found,
Interstellar is 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Yeah, I assumed this was going to be like
Memento is like a
movie.
nice. Yeah, Memento is like a nice 90-minute film, right? I don't know.
Something like that. Maybe
I think that's the only really short one. Yeah.
That and Following, yeah.
Oh, it's 2 hours. Okay.
But I was expecting, I just assumed Dunkirk was gonna be like a 2.5 hour film, and I was like, oh, it's only like it's under 2 hours. But I would have been, I wanted more. But like you said, that means he did it right because it left me wanting more. Did not overstay its welcome.
All right. Why don't we tell people where they can follow us again? Derek, tell people where they can follow you again on the internet.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Derek Miranda 85.
And Tyler.
I am on Twitter at Future Horse Pod, or you can check out my podcast, Cynical Cartoons. I've got other podcasts. You can see all that stuff at futurehorsepod.com.
For me, you can follow me at Shuckster. That's SCHUCKSTER. For the show, you can follow us at The Watch and Talk. You can go to thewatchandtalk.com. Go to Facebook. Facebook comes at The Watch and Talk, or email us at thewatchandtalk@gmail.com. And that's it. Next week, we'll be reviewing Atomic Blonde. I'm Dylan Shuck.
I'm Derek Miranda.
I'm Tao Marchant.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right. Big, long episode. Thanks, guys. I know that's a lot of time to go, but
yeah.
It was good.
Lots to discuss.
Here's the thing, Dylan. If you do want to do Valerian this week, I will see it again. I will probably watch it twice in theaters.
I gotta see Valerian and Atomic Blonde this week.
You can record during the daytime, right, Tyler?
Yeah, okay. I get up around 8 now, and I'm usually my nice recording hours is like sometime after 2 p.m. is good for me.
Okay, I'll try to see it either tomorrow or I'll go see it Wednesday morning, and then let's shoot for Thursday at 2.
Okay.
Tentatively now. Tentatively.
Oh, Thursday. Okay. Maybe Friday or Wednesday will be better because Thursday is actually. Oh no! Sorry. Thursday's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, tentatively, we're not set in stone yet. Anything, but anyway.
Right.
All right, guys. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, for sure.
And Derek, I gotta come get those shirts from you soon.
Yeah, definitely. And if you need an extra person for Atomic Blonde, and if you're doing it right, that'd be down to. Because I'm really excited for that movie. I'm probably going to see that Thursday night.
You're probably the only person excited for that movie.
I love spy movies.
I don't know anything about it.
I think it looks like a really just cool, fun, like Cold War spy movie. So I'm with Charlize Theron just kicking ass.
It's just weird that it came out at the same time as, or just the same year as the Fast and Furious movie that she was in. It just seems too I don't know, on the nose. I guess I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go make some food. I'm hungry.
All right, I'm gonna make some food and watch the movie. So.
All right,
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye.
Bye.